It's the Blues on the street.
Parade's complete.
And Gloria is the new queen.
You can't forsake your team in last place.
As they sang the Bruins to sleep.
My memory is scummy. What's this podcast that I'm in?
Man, last season's out again, and Rink Moose is back in.
Hey Pierre, what's wrong? What's going on?
No team's gonna cut you a deal.
Mitch said, hey Austin, you're awesome. Drop your pants and shock them. Now score like your team's freaking in.
Unfriggin' believable.
Sen's got no stars or snipers, but it's best draft in years.
At least fans can't sleep easy because here comes Lafreniere. Hello there, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Rink Moose Hockey Podcast, an episodic podcast where two good friends get together and discuss all things NHL and their implications in the fantasy hockey universe. It's a special week this week. We are back in the Toronto studio. I am, of course, your host, Nick Costu, along with two guests this week. First off, the esteemed Kyle Nice is back and healthy, ready to go. And happy to have back from episode 5 of the podcast, esteemed guest, Michael Robson. How are you fellas doing on this, I don't know, what is this? Saturday evening. We're getting into the game time soon.
I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited to spark some hopefully uncivil debate as we get through our topics on this podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I know we, as you guys know, we had such a great Leafs roundtable before, and just to get some of those pieces back, I'm sure it'll be a fantastic episode. But yeah, we've been we're privileged, we're pampered, and we haven't been on the show a while because we don't like recording so much from such a distance. So we waited for the opportunity for Nick to be back in town. The studio lights are on. the on-air red light is glowing. And it's a great day to record. And we have a little bit of a beverage here. And let's get this off and running.
Yeah, it's fantastic when we haven't recorded in so long because there's just so much to get into and so much ground to cover. So I think, our fans have been eagerly waiting. And I think there's no better way to start than the All-Star game, the event for the fans, as they say it. Players don't want to be there, but the fans get their weekend. And this year it was in great St. Louis, Missouri, a place that it's kind of a home away from home for me. I was just there a year ago, got to see some baseball. Was there for the St. Louis Cup run. Was happy to see that they were getting to host this year, especially after their big run last year. And all in all, it seemed like just as an event, as far as just, the league having a good time, making some revenue, getting viewership, getting some of the big names out there. I know a few didn't want to come, but all in all, it seemed like a pretty successful weekend to me. What did you guys think from get into anything, skills, game, anything surrounding the event? Give me everything you got on this weekend. What did you take away?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be totally upfront. I wasn't all that involved in this weekend, as I usually aren't. So I'll give you a couple takeaways right off the bat. One of the favorite events for me was the skating competition, the fastest skater. Really impressive by Matthew Barzal. We always knew he could skate, but for him to just beat out Connor there was pretty impressive. Obviously, I think, where no one's saying Barzal's a better skater than Connor McDavid, but it just goes to show he's got that in his toolkit. It was a hell of a lap, and really awesome to see on my fantasy roster, so 2 big thumbs up there. And the next guy who impressed me a lot was Elias Pettersson. on the hardest shot, he had over 100-mile-an-hour slap shot. Who would have thought that this skinny little twig from Sweden, but weighing about $150 at most, would punch down 100-mile-an-hour slap shot? And we've seen guys like Ekblad unable to do that in the past. So really, really cool. Those guys surprised me as well. From what I hear, it was a pretty good event. And that's about all my takeaways there, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to the hardest shot conversation, seeing Shea Weber take home another hardest shot crown was pretty cool, especially when it looked sort of over the past couple of years like he might not make it back to the All-Star game. I would have loved to see them bring Zdeno back to see them go head-to-head, but unfortunately we didn't get that. And then, yeah, just I only really watched the skills competition, not the 3-on-3 game on Sunday, but the women's 3-on-3 game was pretty incredible. There was this one move by Lamoureux Davidson, which was just unbelievable. Almost got me out of my seat there, which I didn't think could happen on a little all-stars skills competition. So those were my takeaways, I think, from the weekend in general.
Yeah, honestly, having watched both events, passively albeit, did not enjoy the skills at all. I thought the fastest. Yeah, I'm sorry, boys. I mean, the skills competition's really messed up now. I think they got to do something. Even the fastest skater to me, I wasn't even all that invested in. The goalie streak competition went way too long. The hardest shot, I wasn't all that into. The women's game, thank God for that, because for once we had something competitive going on during a very non-competitive evening. And man, the shooting in the stands competition. Oh,
fucking dumb.
I think it was a failure. The fact you set up all these little targets and then this big arc in center ice, of course everyone's just going to go for the arc. So it becomes a competition where they're all just shooting for the arc. And it's just stupid. No, like Mitch Marner and Kane going at it, like shooting at these arcs. I thought it was just really dumb. And McGuire interviewing them, and it was I thought the whole night nothing clicked for me. I do like the women's game. I think they make that an annual thing. I think they maybe change a few things. Maybe give them more time. Don't do the continuous time. Give them stoppage time. Let them have everything you can do to have them have a competitive game as if it was the Olympics, like simulated. Do it. And either do it at the end, the beginning, the middle, I don't care, but have that there, and then they got to revamp everything else, because something's got to change here.
Did you have it on? Like, were you watching it?
It was the night of the Saginaw game, and then I got back and I watched. I skipped through the commercials, watched through it, and I was just bored. I don't think it clicks. I think something about the hockey skills competition. I think it's gone down in quality. Like I don't know how to explain it.
The save streak is just way too long as well. It was just...
I was shocked they let every goalie have a streak. At first I was like, okay, it's just going to be 4 goalies, one from each side. They had all 8 goalies do the save streak.
I watched the first one, and then I was at the Saginaw game as well, so I started to skip through the rest of them, and I was shocked when it took me like maybe 5 minutes of actual time just to skip through this save streak competition. I think it took up an hour of the All-Star Skills competition.
And then, now, you guys didn't quite get into this, but the All-Star game I thought was it brought it back to it was a successful weekend because of the game. I thought the third and the final game was very competitive. I think it was Atlantic against Pacific Division. That was a really good matchup. Among the standouts for me, David Riddick was fantastic in goal.
Homer, you're a homer.
I have Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, who really stood out to me. Don't forget about Quinn Hughes. He had a very good game. Hurdle had a fantastic game, only to get injured a few days later, which I found very funny. But he was really good in that game. Draisaitl, McDavid were great, obviously. The Brett Hull commentary, I know we talked a little bit about that off the air. That was very comedic. It was nice bringing the celebrities in, Pam, John Hamm. That was nice. Brings a little levity to the game. Green Day, as a Green Day fan, Kyle, did you approve of the Green Day concert?
The best part of the weekend.
I liked how they started outside, then they moved inside. It was a very cool little concert.
My question is this. Were the F-bombs pre-planned? Did they go in here saying,
I don't think so.
How do we make a splash?
What I heard was that the NHL strictly forbade them from using any F-bombs, and that Billy Joe didn't take too kindly to that. So I think they were planned
That's
as a
awesome.
little bit of a fuck you to the NHL.
So Bettman's just kicking himself in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? It's funny because their relationship with the NHL goes way back. Because like 4 years ago, there was the World Cup of Hockey, and the Killers were going to open up the event, and then Green Day was going to close the event
on the second day.
On the second day, and we had all bought in tickets for the Killers. They were fantastic, no regrets there. Kyle was the only one who bought Green Day tickets because he's a huge Green Day fan, and they canceled on him.
Yeah. So what happened was, and we got really lucky that day because of my jersey, they put us into the VIP section, and we did the Killers concert. And it was fantastic. The crowd wasn't a great crowd, so none of us, like, we were loving it, but everyone else was like, not that super into it.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was the Killers called up Green Day, or their people called their people. They're like, man, I don't know about this one. Just don't go. So Green Day calls in sick to the fucking concert. I'm like, my favorite band ever in a hockey event. This is bullshit. And now here they get their second chance.
Chance, and they
blew it.
Stick it to the NHL.
Yeah, and first of all, it's kind of a weird partnership. And then I saw, like, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. They're an old band. They're still trying to pump out new music. I've heard the album. It's not a great album.
They're trying to promote the new album.
Yeah, and it's just like it's cool. I like that they're doing it, but I think that the F-bomb thing was awesome. Like, they're just so old school in that way. That's very cool.
Yeah, like I said, the game's a mainstay. Ever since the change to 3-on-3, it's a success. Keep doing what you're doing. Do the 2 games and then the third game. Have them be an hour each. Get a band to come in at the end of the 2 games while they rest. It's a great format. So keep the game as is. Get the women's game more integrated into the skills comp, and I think they'll have themselves a good weekend moving forward. So all in all, I think it was a great host, and I think next year is going to be good because it's in a southern market. It's in Florida, I believe, and that means Crosby's going to want to go, Obi's going to want to go, everybody's going to want to go because they're not shivering their asses off in St. Louis, right?
So speaking of the game, though, what did you think of the little Kachuk-Draisaitl moment?
Yeah, so they kind of put it behind them. Or, no, like they wouldn't celebrate together, right? So, like, yeah, they'd make a passing play together, and then they just wouldn't celly together. That was kind of odd.
I got to jump. I love this from Draisaitl. I love this competitive fire about him because even before the game, he was interviewed. What if you and Kachuk set up each other? He's like, I'm not going to celebrate with him, or he said something like that, like, I'm not going to care. I won't even touch him. Like, I love this. It's team first and stupid all-star shit second.
Yeah.
I love that. It's awesome. The rivalry is alive, and that's our next topic.
Next topic. Great segue, Kyle. It was, hey, fans knew they were going to be in for a treat after the events of last game and the whole Kachuk and Cassian feud. They were going to get together the following Wednesday after the All-Star break, and then they were going to have a back-to-back game on Saturday. And basically, I mean, between the 2 games, I mean, I don't know where to start. I mean, you had the goalie fight. I believe that was on the Saturday. What happened on the Wednesday game? You guys rejig my memory here.
So the Wednesday game, it was a lot tighter. It was the shootout. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And on top of that, there were a couple fights. The first one between Nuge and Monahan, which just sort of felt like a preliminary card to the main draw. But then Cassian just making Kachuk wait a little bit before actually engaging him in a fight, which I loved. I loved that little mind game. Just keeping him on his toes.
Yeah, that was really cool. But I think there was almost a bit of like they put it behind them after that game because Kachuk did step up and there was a mutual respect. Like Cassian almost gave him a bit of a nod after the fight, as in like, okay, I do have respect for you now, even though you were a shit last game. But like after that fight, Kachuk got it pretty good. He got a couple hooks in there, but honestly, I have more respect for the kid after doing that. It wasn't just a pussy where he put his head down the whole time. Like, it was a solid tilt. Nuge and the other fight was meh. Like, Nuge isn't a fighter, so like I didn't really expect that. But the fact the game was so darn competitive, the fact that Edmonton came back to tie it and it went to a shootout, and the whole David Riddick, which as a goalie, I love that.
Oh.
Fantastic. Kyle, I know, would hate that if somebody did that to him.
This to me is almost bigger than the Tkachuk and Kassian thing. The stick flip and eyeing down the Edmonton bench, and you can tell they're pissed to shit. Next game, they've light him up, and they're giving it to him as he's getting pulled.
As he's
so
skating off.
Riddick gets pulled, they're giving it to him, and then Talbot gets into the fight, so Riddick has to go back in. I thought that was a great storyline. He's like, keep flicking your stick, buddy, you stupid fuck. So that was awesome. I thought that was just and Kassian scored in that game, so he ended up having a good long laugh about that. But one underrated thing about this matchup here, we talk about Kassian and Tkachuk and all that, but is this a Giordano McDavid thing going to become some sort of problem? Because all of a sudden he's looking more and more like a criminal as this series goes on. Like, he had a play there when I messaged you right away, Giordano's a fucking bitch. Because he did something really dirty to McDavid, like held his leg down, and I'm like, wait a minute, I just watched this documentary where you were really apologetic and you were trying to get out of this limelight, and all of a sudden you're looking like a real criminal here.
He was in the documentary?
He was.
Oh,
and we'll get into that soon, but all of a sudden you've got this guy, this well-respected guy, looking like he's trying to take shots at McDavid, like in a dirty way. So I'm like, this series, if we ever get a playoff series, it could get so fucking ugly, and it could get so amazing at the same time.
Well, just to re-jog everyone's memory, I believe it was a play where he was kind of flat-footed, and McDavid was about to get by him, and he stuck out his knee to potentially get in the way of McDavid, and basically connected knee on knee. Thank God McDavid was okay, but it could have been a very dangerous play.
Well, and after the play, you saw McDavid just giving it to the refs on the bench.
Which you never see.
And it makes me think, because now McDavid's out for a long time with a quad injury, but it makes me think that he was actually originally injured on that play, not to the point where he couldn't play through it, but because you never see McDavid get that angry on the bench. So both the play by Gio and then the play against the Predators, which ended up knocking McDavid out long term, were to the knee he had injured in the previous year on another play by Giordano. But I think looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, that he may have initially injured his leg on that Giordano play.
Interesting. Isn't that something, eh? How it causes the injury, and yet he's in that documentary. Now I want to watch it even more.
You've got to watch this documentary, Nick, and I'll give you a very short Cole's notes, is that play that we saw at the end of last year, it messed his knee up in so many ways. And essentially what happened was the doctors, he went to see 3 different doctors. At the end of the day, they said, you need surgery like yesterday. Any person on earth, we'd say, have surgery like yesterday to repair this, and we're talking plates and screws in the best player's knee, right? So that's very scary. It's not a good thing. What he ended up doing was getting a third opinion in LA, and that guy said potential to rehab this. So and he worked 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Some miracle happened, and his knee ended up getting right on time for the season opener. Now, I'm not an expert on injuries, but I do know a thing or two. When you have an injury in a certain part of the body does its best to kind of compensate in certain ways. It tries to protect that area a little bit. So there's going to be a little bit of imbalances in the rest of his body for the next few years. And this quad injury could be the first of maybe a couple nagging things down the road that will show up. And who knows if it even is a quad injury. Maybe it is knee related and they're just trying to keep it as quiet as possible because they don't want that shit getting out. They're so secret over the summer. None of us knew what was going on. So there's this cloud of unknown and this cloud of mystery under McDavid, which is very, very frightening to me. Anytime there's a little bit of swelling in that area, that is super scary, and I hope we're not seeing anything re-aggravated there.
So, I mean, we talked about the little rivalry. They do have one more game left. It's the last game of the season, so that'll be interesting to see if that has any playoff implications. But given we now know the McDavid injury is at least 2 to 3 weeks, given the very recent news of Zach Kassian's suspension with the kick, we don't really,
God.
we can, I'm sure we all kind of share the same opinion there. Like, you just can't be doing silly stuff like that, and hence the 7 games. 7 games, that's a long suspension given the standards, So with them out 2 to 3 weeks, how do you guys see this changing their playoff chances and the implications?
Well, I think coming out of the Battle of Alberta, both Edmonton and Calgary took a hit. I mean, Hamonic and Giordano are out now. I think after the Battle of Alberta, both teams were flat in their next couple of games. Okay. And so I think that with some major injuries to both teams, we might see a game between them at the end of the season, which has serious playoff implications because it seems like they're both limping towards the playoffs right now. And that the Pacific Division and the Western Conference is so tight right now. I think the 8th spot is held down by Arizona, who is 3 points up on a team that has like 3 games in hand on them. And so anything can really happen out west, and I think Edmonton might be looking at another lottery pick this year if McDavid's out long term and with the Kassian suspension.
They might be looking at a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're not in the playoffs, you're kind of at the 15-16 range, right?
And with the West.
Yeah.
With the West so close, if they go on even a slight slump, they're all of a sudden sitting at the bottom of the West.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like, the way I see it, and we're not getting into predictions here. We'll get there. We'll cross that bridge after the deadline. But I just, to me, there's like 2 teams kind of trending in the right direction, and it's Vancouver and it's Vegas, right? Like, I don't see those teams stepping down. Vancouver, because they don't really have injuries right now. Like, everyone's healthy and everyone's doing well, whereas you can't say the same about Calgary and Edmonton. And then Vegas, because they've gotten the push, they've gotten the new coach, the mastermind, of course. They seem to be picking it up here. They're healthy as well. It's going to come down, and then of course Calgary, Edmonton have the injuries, and then Arizona just can't figure themselves out. So it's going to be fascinating which of those 3 make it here.
Let me paint the picture.
Or more.
Yeah. I got it here in front of me. So in the Pacific, we're talking Edmonton, 66 points. Vegas, 66 points. Calgary, 66 points. Arizona, 64 points. And Winnipeg, outside of wild card, at 63. Now, Edmonton has played 57 games, and Vegas has played 59. They got 2 games in hand on Vegas. And Calgary has played 59 as well. So Edmonton right now is in the driver's seat in number 2 in the Pacific. But again, they're all locked at 66. This could go so many ways. That being said, I'll say this. I've seen a fight out of Edmonton that they haven't had in recent years. I think they're so caught up in this emotional season. It's been such an up and down year, so many storylines, and I think that they know for them not to make it this year would be a huge blow to the psyche. If they can find a way to slippery slide their way into this thing without Connor for the next, call it 3 weeks, I think you have to look at Draisaitl and just take all your hats and clothes off and say, this guy is the Hart Trophy front runner. He has been stupid good at. Maybe for most of it, he's been the best player on the team. And thank goodness they've had Yamamoto slide in and be a key figure. That guy flies out there. He can really fly around the zone. So he solidified that second line as the Nuge, Draisaitl, Yamamoto line as a really, really solid, competent line. So if they can hold it down until Connor and some of their other injuries come back, just hold on for dear life. I think that this could be a team that could be pretty scary.
I'm just so, like, the next 3 weeks, I want to see them find a way to right this ship, because I look at, stop talking about top 6, they have a top 3 and a bottom 9 right now. Like, their bottom 3 lines, second line Gagne, Haas, and Chiasson. Third line Sheehan, Archibald, and Benson. Fourth line Cave, Russell, and Kajara. Like, I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of Edmonton, but if you're fielding those 3 lines, and they got to eat up a lot of minutes because you can't have Draisaitl's line out there every night. Like, I hope to God they can just survive, play 500 hockey, just 400 hockey for the next 3 weeks. Just try to survive here.
Well, and I think as we approach the trade deadline, we might finally see Puljujarvi moved. Because I think that you have to try to bring in some help. If you're serious about playoffs, you got to try to bring in some help. He's a guy who's already expressed he's not coming back to the team. And although Holland has said he's not changing up the plan, I don't think the plan ever really included Puljujarvi.
What's the plan? Is the plan
honestly
rebuild, or is the plan go for the playoffs?
He's been really vague about it.
I think it's got to be playoffs because if you're the manager of McDavid, I don't think McDavid's going to take too kindly if you're shipping out assets that can help you.
Yeah, which is
not that I'm saying Puljujarvi is, but if you're trading for picks, that's a bad sign.
Absolutely, but I think if they move Puljujarvi, they're looking to move Puljujarvi for ideally a top 6 winger.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay a little extra, given that I think at this point Puljujarvi's become a bit of an unknown commodity. And so I think you could see him moved before the deadline, and I think if you do, it's going to be to bring in help to try to push for the playoffs. Especially when, as Kyle said, they're in the driver's seat in that second spot in the Pacific.
We'll see how long they're in the driver's seat.
It sucks, this situation, because it's not like Puljujarvi has lit up the Finnish league where he is. He's done well, but he hasn't lit it up. Like, there's no way this guy's lived up to his potential, and a host of reasons could be why, but Edmonton got screwed here for this. And yes, I think they rushed him, but it just sucks for them. But, man, I got to say it again. This Draisaitl character, whoever the hell he is probably the best player in the league when Connor is not in. And that's no one can take that away from him now, especially if he drives this team when he's out.
German, right?
I think he's German. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
You like your...
I like my German hockey.
You're about to be a resident, aren't you, Nick? Excellent.
Okay. With that said, so I got final little takeaway here, without getting too much in predictions. Who's the safer bet for the playoffs, Calgary or Edmonton? You want to go first?
I mean, I think it's got to be Edmonton.
Yeah.
Which sucks to say because Calgary, going into last year, Calgary was the runaway winner of the Pacific. They looked so good, but they have really struggled this year. They just lost 2 of their top 6 defenders, and I think that it's a lot easier in today's NHL to lose some forwards and make up for it with some depth than it is to lose your defenders and keep up with the rest of the pack. So I have to go Edmonton as much as I maybe want to say Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the minority here. I for one do like Calgary's chances better.
I know David Riddick.
I know Giordano doesn't have a timetable, and that kind of scares me.
Screw him.
I'm not too aware of the Hamonic situation. He's got no timetable as well. And those are 2 guys I really like. So it's who writes the ship better without their most finest assets, right? But to me, I just see Calgary managing their injuries better. They still have a top 6. They have more depth up front than Edmonton right now in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think if the goalie can steal some games despite the D being away, I think they'll be just fine. So I like Calgary. I like what Jeff Ward's done. I would be more safe. If I had to put money down, they would be my playoff seed, not Edmonton.
I'll take Edmonton 10 out of 10 days of the week. 7 out of 7, perhaps. And you know what? Since last year, Calgary has become sort of a joke to me.
But see, I trust them more to add. Because here's the thing with Calgary. They realize this is their shot.
Yeah.
Edmonton has more of a future. Their assets are more sought for the long term.
But they're good assets.
They're great assets.
Evan Bouchard is one of the best AHL defensemen.
For the long term, I agree. But Calgary doesn't have that farm system. They have one of the worst farm systems in the league,
brutal.
if not the worst.
Brutal.
They know this is it. After last year's debacle against Colorado, I just trust the more urgent team. If we're just talking this season, I'll put my money behind the more urgent team who needs results. And I trust the GM there to make more of a statement move than Edmonton's GM.
Yeah,
because this Edmonton guy is being too vague. Whereas to me, Calgary, if they don't make a major move at the deadline, then that's going to be very concerning. But I do see them making that major move.
But I don't see see Calgary as being more urgent than Edmonton. That's the thing.
Their situation?
Well,
they're
in more win now mode, but that's just because they have a shitty system.
If they don't have a good run this year, they're done.
Like they're going to dismantle?
Yeah. This is everything.
I guess.
Everything has culminated to this. Like Giordano is only getting older. The Norris Trophy winner has had his best season behind him, and this season's already been elapsed. He's only had like 32 points all year. So like we don't know what the future of him is. And then up front, you don't have a McDavid, right? You're like I don't. Boudreau hasn't had the same season as last year. You're right. If you had him in fantasy, he's had a disappointing year. Yeah. So to me, their future is a lot more grim, and hence they need to go for it this year.
So does that change though if they go out and trade for somebody like Matt Dumba?
I mean, it means you may have lengthened your window by maybe a year or two, which is nice. You don't want to just put all your chips in this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're calling in on him. But they probably have a lower prospect pool to give up, right? If I'm Minnesota, I want the best haul. And so like if I'm listening to Toronto, I want like Robertson, right? Right?
Yeah,
Calgary doesn't have a Robertson to give up.
No.
That's their problem. So they're not getting Dumba. I'd be shocked if they get Dumba. Calgary's got nothing to give. That's my concern. They need to add, but I don't know what you give other than what's already on your roster.
That's fair. You know what I'd love to see, and this is a total fantasy situation. I would love to see Calgary bring back the Double Dion for a little bit of a run here. I think.
What's he been doing though?
So I have no idea.
Southern
but
California tanning? Like what's he doing?
He hasn't retired, so I don't know whether he's still looking for a shot. I'd love to see Phaneuf, come back into a team and just fill some like bottom pair minutes, just to see the guy play again. But I don't think it's likely.
No, as somebody who watched those King games intensively, that man does not belong in this league anymore. I had Jonathan Quick on my fantasy team, and every time I had Phaneuf on the ice, I was shivering in my boots because I didn't know what was going to happen. So no, I've seen enough of Phaneuf, and I don't see him coming back. As much as you want to live that fantasy, no redemption for Dion Phaneuf. No.
Yeah, Calgary. Oh, you said it yourself. Calgary, they don't have the
assets. They got a pick, probably, right? I assume they have their 2020 pick?
I think so.
So they got that.
That's valuable. Like 2020, that's more valuable than it would be usually, but
they're a non-lottery team for the 2020 pick.
Yeah,
give a third rounder with it, and maybe you get a decent asset.
But here's the problem with that is like Pittsburgh has set such a luxurious market for scorers.
Get into that.
I know, but it just means that other teams will outbid Calgary very easily. So they'll have a hard time getting.
Yeah. They're one of my they're one of those teams going to the deadline. I want to know what they do, and they will be a major loser of the deadline if the GM just puts his feet up and is passive and thinks his team can go on a run. Because if he thinks that, the same thing as last year is just going to happen, right?
The issue is, if you look at their forward depth, that what they need to bring in is a defenseman, and the price on those is going to be too high, right? So if you do make a move, you're probably overpaying. If your farm team isn't good, do you trade futures? I don't know.
And there's some good defensemen on the board this year. Like it's a surprisingly, like usually there's only like one D-man at every deadline. Everyone's around. I can off the top of my head name like 5 that are very talented D-men that you need to add. We're talking obviously Minnesota's got Dumba Brodin. San Jose has a man by the name of Brendan Dillon who's very good. Alec Martinez in LA is very good. Petrie in Montreal all of a sudden is probably on the board. DeMello. So serious D-men, and I see a lot of action happening.
Yeah.
But you're bidding with, your Torontos, right? Boston seemingly always adds a D at the deadline. They always add a D. Like it's
Pittsburgh's not done, I don't think either. I think they're looking for a D.
Yeah. So going to be very fascinating, but of course I assume next episode it will be past the deadline and we'll get to dissect that. So much to look forward to there. Okay. Talking about trades. The Maple Leaf segment of the show.
Oh my God.
They made a deal.
Hold on to something.
There was a fire. There was a fire in the city of Toronto after their 5-3 loss to the New York Rangers on a Wednesday night. Hutchison put up another leg. An egg. It started against Florida on a Monday night when Florida came back from what was it, like a 4-1 deficit or something, and they came back to tie the game. Hutchison had a brutal third period. I mean, just terrible game against Florida. They costed the Leafs 2 huge points in the standings, and then they keep the ball with him. They keep him running going into the New York game at MSG, and yet again, you know the play where he loses his stick is late going down to that shot, beats him 5-hole. Not even a nice shot either. It was just a pitiful performance. And to nobody's surprise, an hour after the game, it's announced that they've made a deal with the LA Kings.
Whoa.
Again, another LA-Toronto connection. This, of course, stemming from the Jake Muzzin move last year. This time, Kyle Dubas hooks up with Rod Blake yet again. And we have ourselves a Jack Campbell and Kyle Clifford trade to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Trevor Moore, a third-round pick in the 2020 draft, and a third-round pick in the 2021 draft. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Where's the condition? Explain the condition.
So the third rounder in 2021 becomes a second rounder. I believe if the Leafs make the playoffs and Jack Campbell wins 6 games, not in the playoffs, but in the regular season, or if Kyle Clifford re-signs.
Okay, so first question, A, what do you think? Who is Jack Campbell? What do you know of Jack Campbell? B, with that in mind, did you like the trade?
I loved the trade because I think Jack Campbell is the type of goaltender who has gone through a similar path to what you see a lot of these 26 to 28-year-old goaltenders go through, which just has helped to build character. Highly touted going into his draft year, gets drafted and by the Dallas Stars, and after underperforming for them in the AHL, gets moved to LA, where he then spends, I think, 3 or 4 years in the AHL building up his game before coming into the NHL thanks to a Jonathan Quick injury in, I think it was 2017, 2018, and putting up stellar numbers. He had a .938 save percentage, I think won like 20 of his 30 starts in that year, and just had an unbelievable year before having a down year last year and this year because of a Kings team in front of him that really has been subpar. So you get a goaltender who has had some time to develop, has become fairly confident in his game after going through some trials and tribulations, who comes over and then goes 2-0-1 in his first 3 games in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform. I think Kyle Clifford's really the kicker here. I think Trevor Moore was a top 9 forward at best. I don't think he's gonna become much more than a third liner. Really good player, plays with a bit of an edge, but ultimately lacks size and doesn't have the top end skill that you really need to be a top 6 forward in the league. The possibility of a second and a third seems to be a little much, but getting Kyle Clifford, who adds a little bit of sandpaper to the team, knows what it takes to win. Jack Campbell, who has been touted by Jake Muzzin as being the hardest working LA King when Jake Muzzin was there. And so just adds a little bit of character to the room, which I think was desperately lacking it.
You go ahead, Kyle.
Well, the first thing you got to look at is the face of Kyle Clifford. Does this guy not look like he wants to butcher your whole family? Like, holy
And I've heard that
shit.
from a number of people.
This guy looks terrifying. Like, in jail, no one would fuck with this guy. That is right off the bat a win for Kyle Dubas. He has finally figured it out. No, but you know what? This is what I take away from everything Mike said, because he did a fantastic job summarizing that. The character boost, everything I've heard from Campbell, even his interviews post-game and all that kind of stuff, the way he talks about his teammates, this guy should win Character of the Year from what I've heard. Muzzin builds him up on this platform, but all Campbell does is build up, Mitch Marner bought me dinner, and it was unbelievably nice. Like, Campbell he's such a nice, good guy, and that is just going to radiate amongst the room. So that's fantastic. No longer do you have a controversy point on your backup goalie. He hasn't been like a world beater when he's come in, but you know what? He has kept this team afloat. They've been pretty darn good winning record-wise since he came in. Little blip against Montreal, but hey, that's Montreal for you.
Not even
awesome.
a blimp. He was fantastic.
No, yeah, he was very good. Just he didn't get the win, but everything else has come up really good for him. Yeah, and it's been awesome. So excellent. I say A+ by Kyle Dubas. You gave up more, but who fucking cares? You've got tons of offensive forwards. This is a no-brainer. So 100% win. You needed to do this. Should have done it a while ago, to be honest.
So my take is, do you ever have that feeling when you're on top of something before everybody else is, and then everyone discovers that thing, and then you feel shitty because you're no longer this expert who knew about this little secret? That's how I felt after this trade.
Really?
Because everyone came calling to me, being the LA Kings fan, going, who's this Campbell? Who's the soup man? Who's Campbell? And I just go back to last year, October. I got on a Greyhound from Kingston and went to Ottawa to see LA Ottawa. And
wow, that's sad.
Quick did not get the start. It was Jack Campbell getting the start that game. And I zoned in on Jack Campbell, and there's certain things you pick up at a live game you don't get on a TV, right? And you can go back to the show. This would have been an episode last year where I came calling to Kyle after the game saying, this Jack Campbell is a stud, not only on the ice, but just his character. Little things like after every LA King goal, he would skate right up to the bench. He'd sprint to the bench, and he'd do a high five to every player after they'd score. Something you see in junior hockey, but he was doing it in the NHL. Anytime he'd make a save and the defenseman did a nice job of spacing things out in front of him, he'd give him a nice tap on the shin pads. Little things like that cement what I like to see out of goalies, what I aspire to be as a goalie. I loved everything I saw about him, and he went on to have that tremendous season behind a very poor LA Kings team. The whole structured defense thing, that was out the window last year. This was a new regime, and he somehow had a high 920 save percentage. So that was unreal, and of course he had the character. So I was on top of this guy. I had the full scouting report. Everyone comes calling to me, Nick, who are they getting? And I say, this is a huge, huge win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, of course they gave up Trevor Moore, but the ceiling, you know what the ceiling is. The third-round pick, it's a third-round pick. The reality is you got a top-notch asset here, not only on the ice, but off the ice, and no more question marks. Now the players can go out on a back-to-back and feel confident, play their loose style, and not feel like shit. They can give Freddie a rest on a non-back-to-back and just have him play like they did this week. Like tonight's game in Ottawa. They're starting him on the front half of the back-to-back. That's not something you saw before. So everything's kind of culminated here to just be a fantastic move for Dubas. I'm glad it shouldn't have happened in the first place. They should have went with McElhinney instead of Sparks going back to 2 years ago. But he's resolved the situation to the best of his ability, and he found the right man for the job. So as the LA Kings fan here, I'm giving a big applaud to Kyle Dubas.
Well, and you just think back to the talks about Georgiev, where it was any team that's going to, pull Georgiev from the Rangers is going to need to give up a top 6 forward, probably a first or second round draft pick. And nobody was really talking about going out and getting Jack Campbell. And then I think the first time I heard the media talk about it was the night that the trade was made. And it was Elliot Friedman on Sportsnet talking during the intermission about who you need to go out and get if you're getting a backup goaltender. Mm-hmm. And he said, I like Jack Campbell. But prior to that, it was always Georgiev. And which just makes this trade seem even better in my books, because they went out, got somebody who is great for the room, has had a great season, as Nick said, is a stud, and they didn't have to pay the price that the Rangers were asking.
And he's young. So if he is young, Kyle, you're a guy who follows the World Juniors every year. Do you remember the World Junior team the U.S. assembled that year when he was in goal? He was like the nightmare for Team Canada, like 3 straight World Juniors. They kept sending Campbell back, and he was amazing in that tournament. And that was like 2007.
That's why it's so hard to remember. It was so
he's
fucking
28.
long ago.
That's fine. That he's got it. Goalies,
so he's not young.
Goalies don't age like skaters, though.
You can't call him young, though.
You can be 33 and be a solid goalie.
Sure you can.
So, I'm just saying, if they can't resolve the Freddie contract in 2 years with the way their cap space is all tied up and stuff, there's a chance Freddie Anderson isn't a part of the Toronto Maple Leafs in 3 years.
Come on.
And I'm just saying,
don't play me like this. He's not like a number one goalie.
If that comes up, because their money is so tied up, we got the Riley contract expiring. They're apparently going to extend Muzzin in a few days. So with all that said, in the future cap wise being kind of murky for the Leafs, I love the fact you have him ready there, being groomed to be a potential starter. And then you can move up whatever, because they have a ton of prospects.
Justin Wohl or
and then you segue
Scott.
them into the backup role. Mm-hmm. So for once, it looks like the future is just very bright from the goaltending position.
Well, and just along the Freddie Anderson lines, I think if Freddie comes looking for money, it's not even like you want to keep him around at that point, and you're gonna pay as much as you can. It's just that you're gonna be handcuffed by the cap. Also, with how Freddie's been playing recently, I think there have been some questions starting to arise in Leafs Nation as to the longevity of this goaltender and the his long-term future with the team.
I see Freddie as a guy who, at many points this season, has just been the savior of this team for a lot of it.
But cap is the cap.
But I feel like he's just being run ragged, you know? And he's 30 years old now. I'm just looking that up. He's 30 years old. He's going to be asking for a boatload.
The Bobrovsky contract has mucked everything up.
Oh, yeah. And it's not aging well.
You don't know, like, now the ceiling is so high where, like, the goalie can ask anywhere from $5 million to $10 million. And you won't be surprised whatever figure he pulls up his ass. So if Freddie keeps up this Vezina campaign, because he was doing great, and I see him continuing to be great. His work ethic is fantastic. If he can look at Carey Price, he can look at Bobrovsky and be like, "Hey, I deserve at least like $8 million on my next contract. You better give me that." And I don't know if the Leafs are going to want to do that. I, for one, wouldn't. As I see if I'm a GM and I'm allocating money amongst my goalies, I rather just give one guy like $2 million, the other guy like $2 million, and that's it. That's all my goalie money.
And it's like one of the trends we're seeing in the recent couple of years is you don't need that stud all-star Vezina goalie anymore. Like when Pittsburgh rode Matt Murray, a very young goalie, to the finals. Binnington just did it. Pittsburgh might be using Tristan Jarry this year. He's fucking making nearly league minimum pretty much. So it's like you don't want this fucking stud, Carey Price, Sergei Bobrovsky, unless it's way down the road, they're prime aged, and like the cap has gone up enough where it's okay. But I mean, to pay Freddie Anderson all this money when you're already paying the other guys is a wacky concept.
And it's also nice having two guys who can play, because then one's always pushing the other. So for Freddie Anderson, he's been sagging a little now, and Campbell's been fantastic. If I'm Freddie Anderson, I know I'm Freddie Anderson, but I'm a little nervous that he might be cutting into my playing time. As a goalie, you just naturally think that way. You want every start every night, even though it might, potentially hurt you. But in this case, they're going to push each other, and I think that attitude is something Freddie's never had before with all the shitty backups the Leafs have assembled, whether it be Sparks or, Hutchison, Kaskasuo. So I think now, having this little battle, this internal competition, you look at Washington, Holtby and Samsonov, it was Grubauer and Holtby who were fighting. Holtby lost his job. Crawford lost his job to the backup then when
was it Niemi at the time?
Yeah, it was Niemi. Yeah. So having that internal competition, we see it with Pittsburgh now. Kyle can allude to this. Jarry and Murray. Murray was the guy, and now Jarry's come out of nowhere, dethroned him. And you have this fun little competition going, and Pittsburgh's, their goaltending's been great this year. So you want that internal competition. It's always so much better to have that than just anointing some guy the number one, like Bobrovsky, and then he lays an egg, and then you don't know what to do.
Well, and if you anoint a guy number one, you have to pay them all that much more, right?
You only have stuff to lose by anointing a guy.
Yeah.
Like, you literally get nothing out of it than making the guy feel good.
Well, the one thing I will say, though, going back to Kyle's point about how the way the league's trending, you don't necessarily need a stud in net. The way the Leafs play, you need a stud in net.
You do.
And so unless they deal with the defense situation, I can't see a scenario where Freddie becomes expendable. And I think losing him will be an issue. But if you can't pay him and he's not expendable, it's going to be a big loss for the team in a couple of years. Jack Campbell comes in as a possible at least gap stop and maybe somebody as a holdover for one of your younger guys coming out of the farm system.
You did, Kyle?
Yeah, just quick question for the masses. Is Kyle Dubas done? And if not,
No,
what,
absolutely
what's
not.
his next
he
move?
can't be done. He can't put his feet up here.
You never know.
We're talking. I still think they're looking for a defenseman, don't you, Michael? Yeah, I think they're definitely looking for the D. We've heard the Dumba rumors. I think they're looking for a guy more like that than like an Alec Martinez. So yeah, I don't know. I think they could use. I don't know if they need help up front, but I think everyone's been talking about the Kapanen trade, right? The Kapanen or the Janssen. Janssen's injured now, so he's 8 weeks. So there goes that possibility. A couple days ago.
Yeah, really recently.
Surgery. Yeah. So at this point he's not a trade chip. So Kapanen's kind of the only guy there. And
that lessens the likelihood of that too.
Yeah.
Still in a run here.
Yeah. I think but I don't think Dubas is done, and I don't think he'd be shy to move some of the future prospects. Like maybe not Robertson. I don't think Dubas has less attachment to the Lamoriello prospects, though. So, yeah, like a Bracco might get moved, a Timashov might get moved. Kapanen might be gone if they think somebody's ready to step up, and I think Engvall has been pretty good.
When's the Mikheyev back?
He has started skating again. I believe they're hopeful that he'll be back by March.
And
Same with
second
Riley.
he comes back, I think they're going to go on a roll.
Yeah,
Because they were doing so well until he got injured. Like, he was doing great, and then ever since, I think you can trace the Leafs' run, like the collapse, ever since he got injured. He had that creepy injury. I really think so.
I think him and Muzzin went down around the same time, and it was like you lost a character guy who is solid on the defensive end in Muzzin, and somebody who brought quite a bit of energy to the front end.
Two-way game was fantastic. And we've like never really seen much of him and Engvall on the ice at the same time, like together. So to have both of those guys as assets, like integrated into your lineup, I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could trade Kapanen. I think you could trade Kapanen and not really be that concerned, especially because Keith is literally double shifting Matthews like every other shift in the third period. Like it's crazy what he's doing with his top line.
Yeah. Well, and I mean Dubas hasn't been shy to make a move, right? I mean he's playing the NHL like it's a video game right now. That's really what he's doing. And I think after what I see as a bit of a failure of a trade and bringing Barry in, because although Barry's been good, he hasn't lived up to expectations. I wouldn't be surprised if you look at, I don't think he moves Barry out quite yet, but looks to bring in a different right shot defenseman to possibly fill that void that Barry was supposed to.
Yeah, I don't think you move Barry just because like you are, despite the fact it's been a disappointment, he still would dramatically. He would make your team worse. Trading him would not make your team better. I don't care what the piece is. You're better off keeping him and bringing in somebody else to support him. So I agree. Make the move for the D. I don't think they need help up front. They address the backup. I see them making one move for a D. Maybe it won't be Dumba. Maybe it won't be a big name. But they'll need somebody to eat those, minutes that CC wasn't able to eat before he got injured, right? So... who do they have right now? Like Marinson is like their 6th D?
Right now they have Liljegren playing with Sandin, which honestly
he's been okay. Yeah.
I've loved the pairing just because I think that Keefe has used Liljegren sparingly. But when he's been on, he's looked good.
Yeah.
As far as somebody to keep an eye out for, I don't know if Anaheim moves him, but I think Josh Manson I think might be on the block.
They don't want to move him.
Yeah.
They do not want to move that.
So then that might nix it, but that was sort of the name that was being tossed around a little earlier on.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, stay tuned to that TSN trade bait board because they're updating it seemingly every day, and new guys are popping up. So with that said, we'll move on to a little personal experience of mine. Jack Campbell made his debut. It was a Friday night game against the Anaheim Ducks. They just got out of that game winning 5-4. Anaheim, they had basically, he played a solid game. They scored kind of a fluky goal at the end to tie the game up. It shouldn't have gone in. All in all, wasn't a great debut for Campbell, but he did get the win nonetheless. And that kind of segues into my next topic, which of course was my trip to the Bell Center in Montreal. So the following Saturday, me and some friends from Kingston made the short drive over to the city of Montreal. You know, say what you want, beautiful, not beautiful. We were kind of meh about the city.
Sure.
I don't know what you think, Kyle, but I was very meh. We were there for one night to tune into the game. We had tickets. We bought them well back in September. And, after a nice afternoon of getting some sandwiches at the award-winning Schwartz's Deli there, we made our way to the Bell Center. And, man, I mean, just to get this off the top, what a great, great arena. It's situated right in the heart of downtown, very accessible. Great statues out front honoring their history. I'd never seen so much honor for a team's history than at the Bell Center. You can see they're just clearly proud of it. You know, statues of the great Rocket Richard, outside. Just things like that. I mean, and of course, the atmosphere was Leafs and Habs on a Saturday night. So you had 50% Leaf fans, 50% Hab fans, exchanges ongoing, chants. You'd go from Go Leafs Go to Go Habs Go Leafs Go to Hab. Like, just being there, not only, like, hearing it on the TV is one thing, but being there and being involved in it is another. And just, it was great. Like, Kyle, they let us, we were in the nosebleeds, but if you show up 45 minutes before and you go to a certain section in the 100 level, they let you go down right to the glass and watch warm-ups, whole warm-ups. And all 5 of us got to be right next to the glass and watch the Leafs warm up in their zone for the whole 30 minutes for free. It was incredible.
It's crazy.
And you got to see everything from, the Matthews shot to Pierre Engvall's long neck. Everything was on display. And Campbell looked comfortable in net. I just looked at him and I was like, this guy's going to have a great game. Just looking at him right now. This guy looks in the zone. And sure enough, he did. He had a great game. He was the Leaf star of the game. They kind of ran out of gas, which you'd expect on a back-to-back. I believe it took them 17 minutes to record a shot in that third period. Came back to bite them. They pissed away the lead.
Yes.
A point shot by Scandella.
Terrible third.
Yeah, terrible third. Point shot by Scandella beat Campbell 5-hole. He knew he should have had it. And, of course, the overtime game winner by Ilya Kovalchuk doing the classic point. To what was believed to first be Mark Bergevin, which is kind of funny.
That'd be wacky,
but
man.
was, of course, his son in the box. He had his family over for the weekend. So, the game aside, I mean, the game was the game. I didn't read too much from it. I mean, it was a loss of the Leafs, but they still got 3 or 4 points in that back-to-back. And Montreal, as the more desperate team, as I expected they'd be, got the win, and you saw that in the third period. But all in all, if you have not been to the Bell Center, I now see what everyone's talking about as an arena you need to go to of all the NHL arenas. Like, I've been to about 6-7 NHL arenas spanning from, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal to, California and Florida. And this was really something. I mean, the way the sea of red seats around the ice, just aesthetically how it looks. The way they dim the lights at all the seating, so you just see the white ice standing out. It's a very nice contrast they put together. The anthem singer, the post-game or the pre-game presentation, no one does it better with the highlight packs and the fire. And after the game with that French-Canadian voice who introduces the players when they do the 3 stars.
Oh, he's good.
Carey Price was the first star of that game. Fantastic, like masterclass organization, how to run a game. The one disappointing part, the Bell Center hot dogs.
Oh God.
They are hyped around the whole league. Like I read an article on The Athletic. It took me like 15 minutes to read. It was so long. Just talking about the hot dogs at the Bell Center, how historically good there are. Teams after games will order 150 of them to the dressing room. John Cooper was talking about how good the hot dogs were.
Oh my
Pete
God.
DeBoer was talking about how good the hot dogs were. Everybody would not stop talking about these hot dogs. I had a hot dog. It was lousy.
Oh,
I could have
come
just
on,
make a
man.
better hot dog at home. Like, I did not. Joe, I wish Joe was here to talk about this with me. He loved the hot dogs. It's the most basic standard hot dog you'll ever have in your life. Bell Center hot dog. So, all in all, great experience. Something I'll never forget. It was great to have the lads there. But the Bell Center hot dogs, the big disappointment of the night.
So with that being said, I think we got to pull up Phil Kessel's stats in the Bell Center. See how good those hot dogs really are, right?
Right. Well, everyone always says if you're going to be a healthy scratch for one game of the year, it's at the Bell Center because then you just eat as many hot dogs in the press box as you want. But yeah, and then one more thing, Kyle kind of gave me a little homework assignment before I went there that weekend, asking me, I want you to approach Habs fans throughout the evening, throughout the day, and ask them this question. Do you think your team should be gunning for the playoffs right now, or do you think you guys should be tearing this down, rebuilding, and trying to get potentially Alexis Lafreniere? And I tried to approach as many people as I could and made a total ass of myself in the process.
Excellent. What jersey were you wearing?
The Leafs jersey.
You were wearing it at the time, eh?
Yep. It was a gutsy call.
Okay.
It was a gutsy call.
Okay.
And immediately, I'll be the first to admit this, people don't take too kindly to you walking up to them with a voice recorder and asking if they'd be on the record. People don't like that.
Holy shit.
And I'm not going to be a snake, and I'm not going to interview them while not disclosing that I'm recording.
Of course.
So before, as a good journalist would do, before every interview, I said, hey, is it okay if I not only ask you this question, but I record you? And nobody wanted to be recorded.
Not one, eh?
I only got one recording, and it was because I was behind the cab driver on our way back from the bars that night.
You should
I
have
have
done it
one
in
recording
secret.
that I will show you after this show.
Okay.
And if you want, you could put it in this show.
Okay.
That's all I have. But everyone else declined to be on the record, and so I will just tell you what they told me off the record. The honest truth.
Yeah.
And this is about 4 or 5 groups I spoke to.
Wow.
Good
job.
People ranging from, growing up in Quebec, from, being a youngling, to people who came over from Germany and are now living in Montreal as Habs fans. And I asked them that question that I said earlier, and basically I got the same response from everybody. Everybody told me that they would rather see this team rebuild, and they have no chance of making a playoffs, which is what I expected.
Yeah.
The part I kind of did not expect to hear was what they added to that perspective was they said that will not happen because Marc Bergevin is fighting for his job right now, and Jeff Molson wants to keep the Bell Center flooded every night. They've seen a recent decline in attendance, and they need to keep it going, and that's why they got Kovalchuk. That's why they're trying to get excitement going here. And so they told me, we want this, but we may not necessarily see it because we have this guy with a different agenda running the team.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hard to hear, but I literally heard that same response from like 3 or 4 people.
Wow.
And just that in itself told me these fans aren't dumb. Like, they know what's going on in management. So, I mean, a lot has happened since then. They've lost like 3 in a row, right? So maybe Bergevin has found a set. Okay, I got to ship some guys out, trade a Petrie or whatever. But they're another interesting team for the deadline and to see what they do. But needless to say, Kyle, that was the overwhelming response.
Yeah, which I'm surprised at because, whenever you're on Montreal TSN radio, you're always hearing like, can the Habs fans handle a rebuild? I don't know if they can. That's why Jeff Molson and Marc Bergevin does what he does. But it sounds like they're a competent group. They know what's best for the team. At this time, when you were interviewing them, it was more close than it is today. They were more likely than today than to make the playoffs. So to hear them say that on that game is, it just goes to show that they're very sensible. And yeah, I mean, if this is the case, and if Jeff Molson is pulling, this kind of bullshit, and he stopped. Here's the problem with Montreal. When is the last time they've had like a star player? When is the last time they've had such a great goal-scoring talent like that? I know we've had Subban, and he's been a Norris Trophy winner. Weber, Carey, yeah, that's. I mean, up front, but the drafting's been bad.
Not since the days of like Saku Koivu and Kovalev.
I guess it's just been so long since we've had one of these guys who can be just a point collector, like just a guy who can maybe challenge for a scoring race. It's
scoring by committee. That's literally been their identity like the past 10 years.
It's a cool brand. It's like everyone works really hard, and that's great. But sometimes you want to just have that star that you can just love and jump on. So I'd like to see them, really hopefully bottom out this year and maybe put something together.
And the other thing is, other than just those 3 losses, it's also the Weber injury. There wasn't news about the Weber injury at that time. Right. Now we know that there was the weird Kyprios tweet about this is his career ending. Yeah. And then, of course, the Habs come out and they say, hey, listen, it's only 8 weeks. But that's still the remainder of your push here. Mm-hmm. And so without your best D-man for that long, plus these 3 losses, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and the other one, it's Boston. I think Bergevin's got to do something now. He's got it.
Yeah, they're currently tied for 10th in the lottery race with 61 points. Good. So they can go. They can definitely get a little bit closer to the top of the lottery, but they're also 10 points away from the final wild card spot. And the teams above them have 3 games in hand on the Canadiens. So it's not looking good for a playoff push. It'd be nice to see them get Lafreniere. I think Montreal would respond to a French-Canadian star in a French-Canadian market. And I think Kyle's right. I think it would be nice to see a star in Montreal again because, as you mentioned, Nick, with sort of the reverence that the Bell Center in Montreal has for its legends, they love to rally around a star. They sort of deify the teams that are great. And although as a Leafs fan, I'd love to see the Leafs break the Canadian drought, I don't think there'd be anything better than to see Montreal sort of come back to significance and maybe go on a run.
The league is always in a better place when Montreal is competing. Yeah. And I don't care what team, as a Leaf fan sitting here, and you yourself, Mike, it's always in a better place when Montreal's in it. When those fans are actually excited about their team, I care for those fans. Just being there, those are passionate fans I spoke to. A lot of these people, they didn't speak English. I had to have a translator. One guy was with his wife, and the wife had to translate everything I was saying to this French-Canadian man. Wow. Who had a Habs mask on.
Nice. And you got that guy.
Yes, this was legit people I was hearing from, and they care about every goal they scored. When they tied the game up, they were in our faces. Fuck you guys.
Excellent.
It got heated. And
Joe was pissed.
I was fine.
Joe must have been.
Joe and Sonny were extremely pissed. They almost got thrown out of the arena. Oh. I wish Joe was here.
Oh my God.
Sonny got us almost in real trouble.
Tell me what he said.
That's a story off the air.
Come on, tell us.
No, but
he gave you his permission. I just saw it.
Come on, very funny. That's a story for Sonny to tell.
Fine,
but. I'm just gonna say, there's a sportsmanship. There is a part of you that says, yeah, these guys are cheering for the other team, but they really do care. And I want this team to be successful. And if they don't do well, I want them to have a shot at Lafreniere. So, yeah.
Don't get my hopes up because this is when the draft lottery goes by and they move back 2 spots. I'm just going to be fucking a disaster.
Where was New Jersey slotted in the last lottery? Because they made a jump, right?
4th-ish?
They were, I think they were a little further back.
Chicago made the biggest jump, I think.
Where did they go?
They went from 11th.
Yeah, past 10.
Yeah.
I'd like to know where New Jersey and Chicago were, but they made jumps, which goes to show you.
Yeah, major jumps.
Miracles can happen.
Miracles can happen, and you know what? Everyone's going to be saying, "Oh, fucking Gary Bettman rigged the lottery." If that does happen, but I'll take it any which way.
Well, and the way that they've set up the lottery, though, it doesn't. For certain teams, it makes sense to do the push for the playoffs because you still end up, 8th in the lottery standings. There's a little bit more of a morale boost around the locker room because you're still trying to win. Last year, the Devils were the bottom of the Metro, so they didn't do so well. And I don't have the Western Conference standings in front of me, but they were second last in the East, so I don't think they did a huge jump. I think the Blackhawks were the biggest jump because they just missed out on playoffs last year.
Yeah, they so didn't deserve that. That's unbelievable. But no, it's one thing I have to ask about this Montreal trip. The overtime winner, what was going on in the building beside you, in front of you, behind you? What was the atmosphere like?
I said, there had been animosity building throughout the night, because you're like I said, go Habs, go Leafs, go Habs, go Leafs, go. You know, one of us starts chirping their infrastructure. One of us starts chirping their language. One of us starts.
Can't do that.
One of us starts chirping that they lost both world wars. Like,
oh my God, what are you talking
like
about?
shots were being thrown.
What world? What do you mean?
France lost both worlds.
Why you can't bring France into this?
Yeah,
Who
so-
said that?
I'm not getting into it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, come on, man.
So like,
I just removed myself. Like, I'm not part of this
yeah.
group.
So I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
in our section, I mean, like whoever, if we were kind of having the upper hand as far as the chirps throughout the game, they finally had the final laugh.
Oh,
because
I'm
they
sure.
scored
I
the
hope
game
they.
winner.
I hope they paddled you on the way out.
No, so a lot of them were good sport. Like there was a lot of joy for them, but then they were good sports, and they would offer to give you a handshake. And yes,
I wouldn't shake your hand. After
well,
that shit.
I mean, we got out of there fairly quickly. I mean, I wanted to. We
gotta get out of here.
I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay because I wanted to see the 3 stars because I know they always do a good job. And so we did stay for the 3 stars, but a couple of us wanted to just get the hell out of there. They're not into it. But we stood for it, and man, I love just seeing the kids get excited, like when they score and stuff. Like so many kids were up there in the 300s with their parents. It was a Saturday night game, and like they were just livid when Kovalchuk. They were so happy when Kovalchuk scored, and just seeing those reactions. It was very lively, Kyle. It was loud. It was very, very loud.
Even considering there's only half Habs fans building, imagine
absolutely.
that playoffs
No, the Habs
loaded.
The volume came up nonetheless
Yeah.
when they scored that game winner. So, just a really, really cool atmosphere. I can't say I've been to a sporting event like that where there's been such a nice mix. You know, it was the complete opposite from like being in Golden State when you're the Raptors. And I'm one of 300 fans there when there's 20,000 Golden State fans. Like that is one opposite, and then this was like the other example.
Yeah.
And this made for more of like a very, very interesting atmosphere. So yeah.
Yeah, and you got lucky with the overtime too. What an awesome experience.
Yeah, solid
that
game.
must have been.
Like not the result we wanted as Leaf fans, but it did go the distance, and that's what you want to see. And it was a nice story, right? The guy has his family up for the weekend, the kid's in the press box, and he scores the game winner. Like that's a Hollywood script, right?
Did you see the video of him just dangling his kids out on the outdoor rink?
Fantastic.
I love that.
I love the story.
I
I
love that.
I love how they hopped in a car, drove around to local rinks in Quebec. I knew Kyle would love this shit. Like, and they couldn't find a rink. They had nowhere to go. And then eventually they saw Zamboni doing work on one little pond, and they showed up. No one else was there. It was a really snowy day. It was a terrible weekend. It was freezing cold all weekend. Snow, freezing cold, and Kovalchuk and his 2 kids just get on this rink alone, and he just starts dangling them. It was a fantastic video to watch and just a really fun story.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, that's kind of the final cap. As I said, I'll show you that one recording after the show.
We still have one more trade to go over.
Of course. And I'm going to let you lead this one because you're clearly the most passionate about this one. A man by the name of Jason Zucker.
Jason Zucker and his wife, Carly
Zucker, are being shipped
You can't forget that.
to Pennsylvania.
To Pennsylvania. Now, I think the way I hear it is that Pittsburgh's had interest in Zucker for quite a while. They finally got their guy. And, of course, Bill Guerin on the other side of this, there is a relationship there. They've probably talked about this deal for a long time. Pittsburgh gave up a fucking boatload of value for this guy. Immediately, it was jarring for me as a Pittsburgh fan. I was kicked back into my seat. I was like, oh, my God. Kalen Addison, who by The Athletic was deemed probably your best prospect. I don't agree with that, but he had a really great showing at the World Juniors. Small, agile, puck-moving defenseman, really shifty, skilled guy, a guy that Pittsburgh could really use down the line. And, of course, the 2020 first, which is probably mid to late 20s, but still very valuable in this deep, deep draft. And then I think there was a conditional second or maybe just a pure second in there as well as a throw-in to sweeten the pot. But holy shit, you're getting a guy who has not even 40 points this year. Now, he did have a great year coming. I think last year he had 30 and 30 goals, 30 assists. So the talent is still there. You just know he's going to be one of those guys who can really adapt well to playoff hockey in my mind. I think he's one of those guys who just knows the game that way. He can kind of play that dirty style as well. So, you know what? Pittsburgh had to do this. I think they're obviously still in win now mode. They've had a fantastic year. They've had Gensel go down. They've been battling injury bugs quite a lot, obviously the Crosby thing. So this is a great move for them, taking out what they had to pay. But hey, I mean, Jim Rutherford is just pedaled to the metal right now. And the key here, I'll say this Samuel Poulin guy remains Pittsburgh's prized possession. Fantastic pick late in last year's draft. As long as they don't give up this guy, they still have a future blue chip prospect. So he remains a trade chip. I hope they don't touch him in the days to come. But I get it. I get this trade, but fucking hell of a haul.
Well, and I think maybe there's a little bit of consolation in the fact that Pierre-Olivier Joseph came back in the Kessel deal, so you picked up another defensive prospect there. And Zucker did come out, score 2 goals in his debut. I think it was his debut last night. His second game last night. But a career point per game around 0.5 points, 0.6 points per game. I think ultimately what Pittsburgh's hoping they're getting here is the type of player where, like Pascal Dupuis, they slot in with Crosby and just sort of form that type of chemistry where they can go on a run in the playoffs. And this sort of 2-man game can almost get them a lot deeper than perhaps they thought they could get before. The issue is going to be that if he doesn't live up to this sort of chemistry with Crosby, the points per game, that he's at a $5.5 million cap hit for the next few years, like signed through the 2023 season. He's still relatively young in his prime at 28, and so I think it's a good pickup. I agree that the price to get him was very high. Depending on how you see Galchenyuk, Minnesota got an absolute steal of a deal. No matter what, I think Minnesota comes out on top of this trade in the long term. But if they can get Galchenyuk to live up to the potential he had, this is a ridiculous deal for Bill Guerin, and I don't think he's done here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just a round of applause for Bill Guerin. Whoever this Bill Guerin guy is,
Don't give me that.
He's almost doing his best Sakic impersonation, because Sakic always showed this patience with the way he was going to work Duchesne. Duchesne didn't want to be there, and he just stayed patient. And this Guerin guy stayed patient this whole season, right? Like Minnesota, everyone was writing them off from day one. They could have started this rebuild over the summer. They could have done a lot of major deals earlier, and he was patient, must have heard every single offer come his way, and he took advantage of a desperate Jim Rutherford, who is always aggressive. Kyle would know this. He's always making the first move of the deadline. He's always ahead of the game. And I think he heard Jim. He's like, hey, this guy's desperate. For Pittsburgh, you want to capitalize on these assets. You have Malkin and Crosby healthy and active for only so long. And so it doesn't matter to them they're giving up the first-round pick. Like, it's so easy for us sitting around this table just weighing one fruit against the other fruit. Like, of course you're going to give Minnesota the applaud here because they get a first-rounder. They get a great prospect who Ray Ferraro adored at the World Juniors. He'd always mess up his name and call him Caleb Addison. But it's Kalen Addison. and he was the big puck-moving defenseman for Canada. He was always on the top power play. And Kyle and I would go, who's this Kalen Addison? Where's Byram? Like, who is this Addison guy? And then we'd see him make a great play, and we'd be like, oh, okay, I see why he's on there. So no, they get the great puck-moving D, which is what Minnesota needs. A lot of their D are kind of stagnant old guys who they're going to move on from. And they get the first-round pick, which is for the 2020 draft, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
So I don't care how late that pick is. That's a great player you're getting.
Yeah.
So those two assets plus the other pick. This is fantastic for Minnesota. But again, from Pittsburgh's perspective, this isn't your typical team giving up a first. This is a team that is desperate, only has so long left to compete for a cup, and it's almost a necessary evil. Like it's not what you can't evaluate it from the perspective of just your traditional analyst. You need to sit in the chair of Rutherford's and be like, if I'm Rutherford, would I make this move? And I think he had to. Like I think Crosby's telling him to. I think ownership's telling him to. Everybody's telling him to make this move. He did it, and apparently the Zucker guy is pretty good. Like I don't watch a lot of Minnesota because they're kind of boring, and Zucker, like I don't know, Zucker's not this top notch. Like he's not a 35 goal scorer who's going to get 70 points every year. Like I'm sorry, he's not that.
No.
So like I don't know how great of a trade this is. Their scouting must really adore this guy. They must know something we don't. And I guess I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, given they paid so much.
You know what I love about this from Rutherford? It's like it's like he's obviously Pittsburgh's in this cluster of teams potentially aiming for the cup, and he's the first one to say, "All right, boys, we're going balls to the wall. Who's joining me?" You know, it's like, I'm willing to do this right now. Cards are down. Who's following me? Who's brave enough to come down this road with me and trade all this crap to compete with me? Now, Zucker is one of those guys where if he clicks with Crosby, we could see some magic. Now, if you look at the potential top six when they're healthy, you're talking a pretty fucking nuclear top six. Gensel, Crosby, Zucker, give me that all day long. Malkin, Rust has been cold lately, but still, even cold, is over a point per game this year. Crazy season. And then you might throw in Hornquist, who's an awesome playoff player. That is a nuclear top six. You've got a shaky Murray, but a very steady Tristan Jarry. He was an all-star this year. He's been a rock on my fantasy team. I would probably be in last place without this guy. And then Pittsburgh's got that wild ability to shine shit until it looks like a diamond and just pull out these guys like Dumoulin and McCann is good and like all these random, who the fuck is this guy? And then all of a sudden he's an awesome player. He's a role player. He fits right in. And that room, that system, they have figured it out. They're turning their late round draft picks into players. And like I said, as long as you keep Poulin in the pocket, I'm not too upset about trading all this value, and who knows? Maybe they're not done.
Well, and on the other side of the deal, I mean, it's easy to talk about Pittsburgh because I think that this is a push for the playoffs type of move for them. But for Minnesota, I think this opens up some space for some of your younger guys. I think I've always been a fan of Jordan Greenway, and I think hopefully this gets him a little bit more time. I remember a couple years ago, a lot of noise was being made about Minnesota's younger players like Joel Eriksson-Ek, and I think that he's sort of dropped off since then. He came in with a bit of a bang and hasn't been as big since then. And so I think that moving Zucker, opening up some space for some younger guys, some guys who have shown flashes but haven't quite achieved their potential, could be a big win for Bill Guerin as well, and might even push Minnesota into the playoffs.
That's the wild part about this is they're still out there and they're still in the race, which is crazy.
Which segues to our next topic.
Ooh.
24 hours ago, Bruce Boudreau finally fired. I say finally because seemingly this was the guy everybody had on their hot seat list at the start of the year. Kyle and I talked about this in our first episode when we were making our predictions. Like, if you had a power rankings of coaches getting fired in the immediate future, this was the guy at the top. He either had to convince the GM to keep him, expiring contract, or he had to, or he was going to seemingly be done. And the clock ran out. And this is a fascinating coaching firing because it's not as much of a surprise as I think you'd think it would be. Like, a lot of people see the name and go, okay, he was on the list for a while, but to me, this is a team where, for those casual Minnesota fans who just flip open the standings and go, whoa, my team's still in it, or us casual observers who see them as 3 points behind a playoff spot and 3 games in hand, with the team they're icing, the goaltending they're getting, it is shocking that they're still there. Maybe for you guys, for me, I had them in the playoffs from day one, and don't take that away from me. So to me, I'm pissed off because I thought this was a guy who, if he got you to this far, he ought to be allowed to see the process through. Where is the character in Bill Guerin? Like, don't this guy's done so much for you to this point, and now you're just letting him go. And the big question is does Guerin really want to make the playoffs? Like, is this a move? Is this your typical coaching change where he wants this to invigorate his team to make a push like we see from typical coaching changes, like the Vegas move for DeBoer? Or is this a kind of stealth tank? Is he basically PRing this and saying, hey, we want to make playoffs. This is why I'm making this move. But then it's also the stealth tank because he knows Boudreau really wants to save his job and make the playoffs, whereas maybe this new guy he's bringing in is more in line with Guerin's thought, which is stealth tank, trade Zucker, trade Brodin, trade Dumba, get them all out of here, and this is a stealth tank. And Boudreau, the guillotine on Boudreau is kind of, the second step after the Zucker trade. So it's so fascinating. Before we get to Kyle, just to express the viewpoints before I let the floodgates open on your opinion here. So they had Athletic. They do a great thing where they get perspectives from different people. And I think these two perspectives really sum it up well. So Mike Russo is the beat writer in Minnesota. He says, I'm very shocked today. The team had points in 8 of their last 11 games. They've gotten really poor goaltending, even though all the advanced stats tell you they give up near the fewest high-danger chances in the league. You have to credit the coaching there. It has to be a hard existence every single day for Bruce Boudreau to wake up knowing that there was almost zero chance he'd be the coach next year. This is a sign Guerin wants to make the playoffs. This is a guy who makes this move knowing they're within 3 points of a playoffs. There are definitely guys in that room not playing well right now. The top 2 lines, the way they've been playing and deployed has been troubling for Guerin. Eric Stahl has been bad since before the All-Star break. Matt Zuccarello has been terrible lately, and they can't find him in a spot. All that factors into this decision. And then this kind of different perspective, this is Dom Lucic, kind of more of an analytics guy in Athletic. He's saying usually coaching changes make sense. This one doesn't. Boudreau has consistently been one of the league's best coaches, with only Scotty Bowman having a better career winning percentage, and the Wild are surging of late, going 7-3-1 over their last 11 to inch closer to a potential playoff spot. Minnesota's current chance stand at 38%, and a lot of credit has to go to Boudreau. I mean, just look at the roster he's been handed. It's one that many expected to be in the league's bottom 5, and instead they're on an 88-point pace despite brutal goaltending. And I mean, maybe that's the point. The Wild are stuck in purgatory, and firing Boudreau might be their second step, trading Zucker being their first, towards a stealth tank to improve their future. Any other reason is not one I can comprehend. So where do you sit, Kyle Nice?
The firing of Bruce Boudreau is a legendary disappointment. Legendary. We've all had dreams here at Rink Moose to see Minnesota in a fucking last wild card spot, facing a behemoth of a team in the first round, getting effed by the team they're facing, and Boudreau absolutely getting tomato red on the bench and losing his shit, and that would have made the first round an absolute legend of a first round. We don't get that anymore because Bill Guerin blew it for us, and he's not a good guy. Second of all, the stealth tank mentality is, in my mind, absolutely what's going on here. I don't know who this Michael Russo guy is, but
he's renowned as one of the best writers on The Athletic.
Okay, sure. I get you. But I think you nailed it, or Dom nailed it, when he said Boudreau does not buy into this whole, hey, Guerin says, hey, guys, I think maybe let's wait out this year. Let's just let this go. He would not buy into that. And I think it all adds up. You know, Zucker's traded, Brodin and Dumba are on the block. Why would they be on the block if they're trying to go for it? Those are two amazing defensemen. And then you get Boudreau fired. It's like it all adds up to stealth tank, and it's so weird. We don't see this often because they're right there. It's like they must have the most complacent fans in all of hockey to just let this go so quietly. I haven't heard much so quietly when they're just knocking on the door and Fiala just tearing it up right now. So I don't get this, but from Guerin, maybe they've had a conference with the owner and saying, hey, listen, we know we're not going to win the cup this year. Hey, maybe it's a smart move. They know they're not going to win the cup. Maybe they're actually having the foresight to say, let's pack it in now. So it's interesting. It doesn't happen often, but cool.
So before we get to Mike, Kyle, what are the likelihood of, do you think right after the Zucker trade, Boudreau waddles into Guerin's office, tomato red, and goes, what the fuck? Like,
it's happened already, Nick.
You think, no, but you think that happened?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And you think that kind of stemmed the firing? Like, him and Barron got in a big shouting match?
Yeah.
And the next day, Boudreau was gone?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So, and just actually building off of that, Bill Guerin, after the Zucker trade, after the Boudreau firing, comes out and gives this sort of weird press conference talking about how if anybody else quits on the team, he won't be afraid to move them. And it's almost like trying to control the message of being like, oh yeah, no, Boudreau and Zucker, they quit on the team. But I mean, like, I think Zucker was one of their top 5 point getters. I can't confirm that, but he was around half a point per game, and I know their leader in points per game is Eric Stahl with just over 45. And so it's they're in
the playoff race.
They're in the playoff race, and it's because Bruce Boudreau was doing an incredible job. I think you can compare the job Boudreau was doing with the job that Tortorella's doing in Columbus. I think you can talk about how it seems as though Bill Guerin used a couple of blown third period leads and the Zucker trade and probably Boudreau coming in and giving him a little piece of his mind to get rid of a guy who is one of the best coaches in NHL history as far as win percentage goes. And if you're talking about a stealth tank for the future, the Iowa Wild are second in the AHL in points. You've got a good prospect system. You've got a good team. You just picked up Kalen Addison, who's going to fill a role on the defensive side. Both Brodin and Dumba are still young guys. I don't quite understand where they're going with this one.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a disgruntled fan base for a while because they seemingly always make playoffs and they're out in like the first round. Like that's kind of the legacy. I'd love to have a Wild fan sit in with us, like just to get that perspective. And I know they love their hockey there and the state of hockey. So I don't know. To me, it's just disgruntled little short playoff run after little short playoff run, and that's where the rebuild mindset's coming from.
Well, and perhaps the lack of fan reaction to the Boudreau firing comes from an intelligent fan base who has wanted a rebuild as well, right? It is a deep draft. It is the type of draft where if you tank, you're going to get the type of offensive player you could build a team around in the future. I think if you're 3 points out of the playoffs in a Western Conference that, in my opinion, is completely up for grabs, that you go for it. You go for it, and you take one of the forwards in the later half of the draft who's still going to be a good player.
Yeah.
And you give your fan base something to cheer for. Although we'll see what happens. Maybe Guerin's playing 4D chess, and we're just here to watch him make his moves.
Just like where has like integrity gone in this game? Like where is just like showing faith in a guy who's given so much to your organization the last 4 years in Boudreau and making these impossible playoffs happen? Where is like the loyalty? Where is the, okay, I'm going to let you coach this team for the rest of the year? Like, does that mean nothing to you? Like, there must have been some behind the scenes follow here, and like something must have just made Guerin like just lose his mind here.
Well, and what type of message does it send to your team when you fire a guy who I believe is well liked in the dressing room? Yeah. I think Boudreau is one of those coaches where it's not like he's winning, but he's doing Babcock things behind the scenes.
Sure,
he's winning and he's well liked by the players. And Guerin goes out, fires him, then gives this press conference on, if anybody quits, I'll trade you.
Right.
I mean, at that point, I'd probably be first in line at the door saying, hey, thank you. I'll go to a contender now, please.
And I listened to a lot of the player interviews, and the goalies, particularly Dubnyk and Stalock, very emotional, saying, hey, if I had a better year this year, this man might still have this job. And we read that thing from Russo about how they give up the lowest high danger scoring chance in the league, and yet the team goaltending is like near the bottom of the league. So it goes to show you how important goaltending is, and goes to show you how emotional those players are, and rightfully so, given what's happened.
It makes you wonder almost, with all this weird shit going on, if there's some sort of behind the scenes stuff that we don't know about. Like, what if Zucker got into some sort of, conversation that leaked out or something like that, where we don't know what's going on, but he felt as though they had not. It doesn't add up, really. Nothing really does, but maybe he had not liked their mindset in some way. Maybe Guerin, as a new GM, is trying to say, this is how I'm doing it. I'm going to stick to this plan, and that's how it's going to be. And maybe from the beginning of the year, them in their boardroom, and Guerin was like, guys, this is going to be kind of a rough year for us. we're not going to make the playoffs. Let's just get through it. And maybe that plan changed, but he wants to stick to his script. He wants to stick to his plan for his future outlook, all that kind of thing. But to your point, it doesn't respect the guys who are giving it their all every night to try to make the playoffs, to, just make something of themselves and the team.
And especially when this guy, like in his conference, like in his interview after the firing, he's like, yeah, like a lot of this came from last night's loss to New York, where we blew a 2-1 lead and we lost 3-2 in a shootout. I'm like, if you're letting little short-term things like get the best of you and make a firing the next day, like that doesn't say much about your character, because it's one game of 82. You guys lose in a shootout, like the most fluky thing that should be should be out of the game, but it's only in the game because it's efficient way to end a game. The fact you're basing it off that, like, I just don't know how much I want to read into what you're saying, and how much I just want to, just believe what you're doing here.
Well, and if you want to build a culture in your city, in your team, the way you do it is by rewarding the players for playing their asses off for the city. I mean, you think back to the first year Matthews was with the Leafs, 2016-17. Nobody expected the team to make the playoffs. Come trade deadline, they're making a push. What does Lou go out and do? He trades for, I think it was Brian Boyle, or was that the second year?
Can't remember.
But it's a small move like that where you go out, you pick up a guy rather than, sell off one of your top 6 wingers, where you tell the players in the room, we believe in what you can do. We're not going to jeopardize our future by trading away any big picks or anything like that. But we want to see you guys continue to work. We like what you've given to this team. What this sends the complete opposite message, which is you've been working hard, you're so close, but we don't believe in you. We don't believe in what was going on here. We're making a change. And you can sell it as we think this is what's best for us to make the playoffs. But I guarantee in the room they were thinking, well, we were almost there anyways. What's this really going to do? And
another little thing to add to Kyle's belief in this stealth tank, this coach they brought in, this Dean Evison. He has no NHL no coaching experience in the NHL.
Oh boy,
he's only coached in the AHL, and his playoff record in the AHL is 1-15.
Oh my God.
Was he with their AHL team, like their AHL team?
He was the head coach of the AHL team, Milwaukee Admirals.
This doesn't make any sense.
1-15.
So, oh my God.
But a good guy, apparently. Ray Ferraro says he's a good guy. They used to be roommates in Hartford. Good guy.
Deal.
Good guy.
So what you're saying is, like, we're going to see them at the bottom of the standings next year too?
We'll see. But like,
or not
again,
this year, but
the story, like, the script hasn't been written yet.
Is he interim or is he head coach?
He's interim.
Okay.
For the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And but the script hasn't been written. Like if they don't make another move, like if they don't subtract going into the deadline anymore, I'll actually kind of applaud the Zucker trade, because it'll have been kind of a hybrid. Like, you're still showing faith. You're keeping the most of your group together, but you got a phone call that was too good to refuse. Mm-hmm. Like, if you get that phone call and you're an NHL GM, I think 9 of 10 GMs are making that move.
Yeah.
Or more, because it's such a good haul.
Unless you're a contender.
So I hope he's telling the truth, because in his press conference, he did say we're gunning for playoffs. This is not a tank. I hope he's telling the truth, because that'll tell me, okay, I'm more in line with your thinking, because you're still going for it. You're still honoring the team. You just accepted a trade you couldn't refuse. And it is a great haul he got. It is. The Boudreau thing is, but again, Boudreau aside, that's like a more character issue. So,
yeah.
You good?
Oh, you know what? I'll say one more thing. I just said, you know what? I'm looking at their top prospects from 1 to 6 or whatever. It doesn't wow me. The top guy, Kirill Kaprizov, he's their top guy.
He might be coming. He might be in there in March.
He drafted in 2015, 5th round, 5'9", has crushed the KHL from after he was drafted, pretty much point per game. So that's great. Number 2, Alexander Kovanov. Heard of him? Yep. You have? Yep. So he's at about 2 points per game in the queue. Really, really great year in the queue.
The Tigers?
Moncton Wildcats, yeah. Matthew Boldy, number 3, has had a disappointing
Really, I was going to ask you about him.
Year.
Because he went high, right?
So he's had about 15 points in 27 games. NCAA can be sketchy that way with points, for sure. So you don't read too much into that. But based on reports I've read, he hasn't had a great year. Yeah, and then you got Philip Johansson, and just like I don't know, like aside from Kaprizov, I'm not blown away, is what I'm saying. So that's something to just throw in there as well.
All right, one more little subject here before we get into kind of a mutual topic between Mike and I is speaking of tanking, San Jose Sharks.
Oh,
got quite the injury news today.
Yes.
So this is coming after the Timo Meier got injured right after the break. Like I said, for those of you like Kyle who don't really watch a lot of San Jose, Timo Meier is a top 3 forward on that team. As embarrassing as that may sound, given you may not think he's a great player, he is a top 3 forward. He is gone for the rest of the season. Apparently, it was like a ACL kind of deal, very, very bad. And now Karlsson is out the remainder of the year. I had a feeling he would get injured. I had a feeling like he'd come up with a reason to just dip for the rest of the year.
Go to somewhere warm?
Yeah, with his wife.
Oh, he's already in somewhere warm.
Yeah, I know, but he needs to get out of there. Like he just it's too toxic. Kyle and I had talked on the show before about how they were laughing after losses in the dressing room. Like just not a lot of good news coming out of San Jose. As far as character, Karlsson was kind of leading the laughs in that segment there. So he's gone for the rest of the year. This is your best defenseman. Call him what you will. If he's
a glass house, I call him.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone. And so this lineup they're rolling out. I mean, Joe Thornton is now a top 6 forward again. I mean, by default.
Couture's out, right?
Couture is out at the moment. He will be back, but he's not rushing. There's no reason to rush. So this team without him is looking grim. We talked about moving out Dylan. So he's going to be gone shortly. They wish they could move Vlasic, but his contract is too bad. But Kyle, I mean, look at this. Look at these forwards. Like, I'm spot starting goalies against this team every night.
Oh my!
Because I'm convinced this team can't score.
There's a decent amount of guys I've never heard of here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Evander Kane's out too, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
yeah, this is. I mean, I could become an Ottawa Senators fan very quickly, depending on how this draft goes.
Yeah.
Like I could flip just like that and purchase a jersey in seconds.
Like I know certain guys like Burns who compete every night. They're still going to suit up every game and they're still going to give them all. But he can only do so much. And there's kind of a gap between the bottom 6 in the league and the next kind of 24. And San Jose, they're like within 2 points of being a bottom 4 team. So they're at 54 points and they're 6th last, and New Jersey is 4th last, and they're at 52. So they are right in line here to be a top 5 lottery team. And as a San Jose fan, that pains me to say it when we don't have our pick. But it is what it is.
If you look at it from a vindictive Ottawa Senators fan standpoint, you're watching the team that Karlsson went to. They've been bad. Karlsson hasn't been great. You're looking at it like we got rid of him at just the right time. Matt Duchene, who was brought in, everybody resented the trade, meant that they didn't get their pick last year, and which could have been good. Instead, Bowen Byram was drafted. Still going to be a good player, but they didn't end up winning the lottery, so they're okay with it. They have Brady Tkachuk. They're happy. And now they have San Jose's pick this year, their pick this year. The Nashville Predators have been one of the weirdest teams in the NHL this year. The San Jose Sharks are tanking. Erik Karlsson's out. Duchene hasn't had a good year. Hoffman's on the Panthers, who could go either way. If they start to get average goaltending, they might make the playoffs. Otherwise, Quenneville might be on the outside looking in this year. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to say, if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, you're feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, the only other guy you could mention there is Mark Stone, who's having a great year. But they got a good haul for him. Yeah, they got a good return for him. And then I think for Ottawa, this is just desserts. You had a really brutal watching. The whole year last year is enough to just kill a fan base, right? Terrible team, doesn't have the pick, all that shit. But I look at the San Jose collapse as like a strange kind of karma because of their stupid godlike luck in the playoffs last year and the way the refs helped them to the finals of the West.
But it is almost a Detroitian fall from grace.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
other than
No.
Detroit, people forget this. Since like 2000, like this team consistently makes the playoffs. They've made the playoffs something like
Sure.
22 of the last 24 years. Like it's an incredible run that is overlooked because of teams like Detroit and the Babcock and the Bowman eras. So they just don't get as much hype out there out west. And I think guys like Thornton should be given credit. And speaking of Thornton, he's likely getting traded in the next few days here. So that's another guy who's off their roster. So yeah.
You know what would just be the most ridiculous thing, and I could totally see it happening, is Thornton getting traded to Boston somehow.
That's what they're saying. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, there's still belief in the San Jose fan base that that they can compete next year, which is wild.
No.
There's this belief that their GM, and I can't remember his name right now, but Doug Wilson, that Wilson's just going to be able to do what he's done every year where they've had a down year, which is, make a couple deals, move some pieces around, and get them back into the playoff picture next year. I think that their core is aging out. I love Logan Couture, but he can't carry the team, and I think
the prospect pool's miserable.
Yeah,
he hired his brother. Doug Wilson's brother is the head of scouting in San Jose, and the problem with the San Jose scouting staff is they keep missing on their picks. They keep making poor picks, especially in the second, third, and fourth rounds. Any San Jose fan would say that they're consistently a poorly scouting done team.
Merkley.
They say what you want about Merkley, but like I'm just saying, their prospect pool is in the bottom 10 of the league.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. But you know what? I kind of like the question is, do they think they can compete next year? That I can't answer because they've got Carlson. And
I think
they've
if you
got
move
Burns.
Thornton, it's a huge sign because it's
he's
a guy.
old,
It's a
though.
guy who doesn't want to leave San Jose. He's always refused to
Yeah.
leave San Jose. He loves the Californian lifestyle. Doesn't want to play in a cold atmosphere. Like his bones can't take it. Like seriously, like this guy loves.
He's from Canada.
It doesn't matter. You
Don't
change-
say
you
that
change-
about him.
He changes when he's been there for like 10 years. Pavelski leaves, the heart and soul of your team. Thornton's going to leave. I mean,
What the hell were they doing? What did they do?
they couldn't afford him.
You know what's
They wanted
what's
to
the,
dish their money to Carlson instead.
What's the Eric Carlson contract
It's
for like full term? Isn't
like
it?
the next 7 years.
This is a fucking horrible mess. This is a mess because this guy, you knew how fucking fragile this guy was. He has an artificial ankle, and you signed him so long, even though you know your team is so old. Like, it's brutal. What's the number?
Eric Carlson is signed to a contract through the 2027 season that's worth $11.5 million per year against the cap. $11.5 million
That's terrible.
for a guy who has one ankle.
Honestly,
And I'll
Pierre Dorion drops the mic and leaves the room.
I'll throw another one at you. This one's even more embarrassing. I guess it was at this point. It was couple years ago. Martin Jones got a big contract from the San Jose Sharks. 6 years, $34.5 million. That's a cap hit of $5.75 million a year. And Martin Jones is
Considering how
signed.
fucking terrible
Martin
he is.
Jones is signed until 2024. And Martin Jones is not even a starting goaltender in the league anymore. Martin Jones, Aaron Dell is the starter of the San Jose Sharks. Martin Jones has only started 2 games in the past month. And you have all this salary. I've been hearing people saying they're going to buy him out, which means you essentially give him all this money to basically leave your team, right?
Yeah.
There's some kind of equation where
You
don't have to
average
pay
it,
as much,
yeah.
right?
You pay less against the cap per year, but you pay for more years.
Yeah.
Which maybe they wouldn't mind because Brent Burns, who's 34, is signed through the 2025 season at $8 million per.
This is like it.
So this is their in. Like this is what they have.
Yeah, well,
that-
I can.
They can't win with it.
I imagine there's no movement clauses on Burns and Carlson. Yeah.
They're probably like, what?
It's sad.
How many players want to leave San Jose? I know there's players like, I want to win. How many players want to leave San Jose? How many times?
If I'm a guy like Logan Couture, who's all about winning, and who
maybe that's one guy
put up all those incredible. He led his team last year in that Colorado series. That guy stuck it to your team. Logan Couture, he stuck it to your team. No, as much as you want to shit talk this team, they did beat your team.
Logan
last
Couture
year.
is a stud,
and he was like leading the playoff scoring for quite some time there on an offensively challenged team. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's next knocking on the door to Doug Wilson saying, "Get me out of here."
Yeah,
because enough's enough.
And then Vlasic, $7 million until 2026.
Like I said, it's immovable.
with a no movement clause as well. Yeah, no, they have more money locked up in their decor. No, sorry, about as much money locked up in their decor as Toronto has locked up in Marner, Matthews, and Nylander.
Yeah, and the difference is their decor is like. Yeah, and their difference is their decor is like the average age of like 35 or 34. Mm-hmm. You want to know what my nightmare is? Number one nightmare that keeps me up all night sometimes, twice a week. Well, I wake up with the bed wet. 2022, San Jose wins the draft lottery. Drafts Shane Wright.
Wow.
And I walk myself off a bridge.
What would you be more cheese? Lafreniere to Kings or Wright to the Sharks? Laugh to the Kings, which is very conceivable.
Both would kill me, man.
Yeah, man, I'd be elated.
Hey, I'd rather have Laugh to the Kings because at least they have a fantastic prospect pool, where San Jose is a barren wasteland of talent.
He could hook up with Akil Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas, Turcotte. This would be you could have something there. Like you could start a dynasty with that. Like that would be kind of cool. As much as I hate doing that, I don't like LA, but. San Jose, they don't deserve anything. Nothing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly it turns around, right? Because right now is like the start of this collapse, and then what will the lowest low look like, and how quickly will it take to get out of that?
San Jose is the type of team though where they could end up looking like Chicago looked like they were going a couple years ago, where it was just the 10.5 for Kane and Taves each, the Duncan Keith contract, and where everybody had just written them off because they just felt as there was no way that they could recover from it. But with San Jose, it's a lot more money tied up in a lot older of a group, and they could end up in a seriously destroyed team.
It doesn't look good.
No.
I'm trying to, as a San Jose fan, I'm trying to think of young guys I'm excited to see up. And other than Merkley, I'm not very excited about anybody.
I can't.
Nobody.
Nick, you got to park your fandom. That's kind of something you have to do when your team sucks.
No, you got to stick with them.
No, but stick with them how? You're gonna
so
cheer
that
for them
when
to
Shane
win.
Wright does go to them, I'm
no,
excited.
That's fine, but park it and bring it out when you need to. But don't be upset when they get shat on for years. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not gonna take it too hard because I kind of saw this coming months ago, but it's just a shame that this GM who clearly, he got full consent to do whatever the hell he wanted from ownership. And to throw all the money out in the world that he wanted to, and nothing has gone right. There isn't one value contract there, right, where you're applauding it. So it's kind of amazing.
Just to add more fuel to the fire, Evander Kane locked up through 2025 at $7 million per. And I think Couture's contract extension is pretty big too. I think
there was a certain time 2 to 3 years ago where kind of the old boys club came together and he said, all right, Vlasic, you're a guy here. Burns, you're a guy. Jones, you're a guy. Pavelski or Couture, you're a guy. And he gave 7-year terms, 5 to 7 year terms to all these guys, and it's blowing up in his face.
$8 million for Couture through 2027.
He's gonna want to. He's gonna want to go out of there.
Yeah, that's a good contract for any other team, but for a team where you've invested almost 30
no
million.
One wants Jones.
Yeah,
right. Immovable.
So that's half their cap in those 5 players, right?
Anyways, on to
We're done bagging
yeah,
on him.
we're done. I've had enough. I'm sad now.
You're not. Come on.
Okay, so before we head on to our junior topic of the week, which will close out the show, is there anything else you guys want to touch on at the professional level?
Just the Maurice contract extension. I think he's been dealt a tough hand in Winnipeg this year with Bufflin being out for the entire year. They lost Myers in free agency, and then they had to trade Trouba away because he essentially said he wasn't going to play for them again. And yeah, just he's done a really good job with the Winnipeg team that lost basically all three of their key guys on the back end. Josh Morrissey has had to step up. Neil Pionk, who is an undersized defenseman, has had to be really good for them as well. And so, yeah, just like a shout out to Paul Maurice for continuing to be excellent in Winnipeg and getting a 3-year contract extension.
Yeah, I'm good. That's
Yeah, well said. No, they like Minnesota. I mean, with a depleted roster, they've still stuck around there. They're fighting tooth and nail for a playoff spot, and along with the Nashvilles and the Minnesotas of the likes, they're still knocking on the door there of that big Pacific hodgepodge of 5 teams. So we'll see what happens moving forward. On to our junior topic of the week. I've been meaning to get to this for quite some time. This takes us back to January 24th. So right around the time, right around the All-Star break. Unknowingly, Michael and I went to the same game without knowing that we were both there. So that won't happen again. But yeah, no, we saw the Saginaw Spirit take on the Kingston Frontenacs. Yet another Shane Wright game. This would have been something, I guess, by now, like, I don't know, my 5th attempt to see him live. And of course, Cole Perfetti, right? From the start of the year, I told Kyle there's a trilogy this year I want to see. I want to see the Byfield game, I want to see the Perfetti game, and I want to see an Ottawa game. And I've been to an Ottawa game, but Rossi was injured that night. Or no, suspended. So that was a wasted effort. But we had the Byfield night with Kyle when he was up. We had this game, and then of course mid-March will be the Ottawa game. So we got to see Cole in. Of course, Cole Perfetti, for those of you who don't know, is a top 10 projected pick. Used to be in about the top 5. He kind of dropped throughout the season to now in the 7-8 range by most mock draft standards. What is he, Kyle? Second in OHL scoring at the moment, behind Rossi.
He doesn't have the second best points per game, but he is second.
Right.
I think Byfield's second best points per game.
He's played more games than everybody else.
I'll quickly tell you right now. I'll just jump in. Marco Rossi's got the best. McMichael number 2. Byfield 4. Perfetti 5.
Right. So he's up there, and hence a reason to go down to the Leon Center on a Friday night to see him play. And I guess while I get my notes organized, Mike, what did you think of your observations of projected top 10 overall pick Cole Perfetti?
Well, I think I can understand a little bit why he's dropped in the rankings this year. I think he really wowed people at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Came out and had a great tournament. And then just watching this game, once again, through the first 2 periods, Shane Wright outplayed the guy, like the marquee guy on the other team. And I'm starting to get really high on this 15-year-old, he might be 16 now, player in the OHL who is at around a point per game as the youngest player in the league. And he has been outstanding. And for the first 2 periods, he looked like the best player on the ice. And then in came the Saginaw Spirit in the 3rd period after giving up a quick goal to Shane Wright, I think just under 2 minutes into the period. And they just blazed back, led by Cole Perfetti, who had a point on 4 of the 5 goals that Saginaw scored in the 3rd period.
So. Yeah, I mean, I know how Kyle likes me to break down these things. Kyle likes to look at passing, skating, shot, hockey sense. He likes to kind of break it down in a mechanical way like that, so I will accommodate his view here. Very good passer, very good playmaker, and that is one of his calling cards. He has a 6th sense, knowing when his guy where they are and making seemingly impossible passes from like one corner to the blue line. Like he will make things happen on the power play, he can settle things down. Like when he gets the puck, time stops. And he seemingly has a vision, and he can slow the pace down and find and make the better play. Not much of a great skater. I don't think his top speed is anywhere near elite prospect level. So the top speed isn't necessarily there. The shot is disappointing. I'm not too impressed by the Perfetti shot. I think it overhyped. I don't think for one he's got a great shot. But he was cherry picking a lot of the game. I felt like he was a hot dog for a lot of the game. Like a lot of the first two periods, he would almost be exiting the zone early, waiting for the pass at the red line. Like I kind of got this guy, he's choosing when to try, and he's not exactly engaged 100% of the time. Not a very physical player. You're not getting that out of Cole Perfetti. He on the power play, this was interesting. Sometimes they had him on the bumper in the middle on the power play just because of his distribution is so good. So they'd pass on the puck, he'd find somebody open and make a play. Later in the game, they shifted him more to the traditional point part of the power play, top of the circle. He seemed to thrive there. So that was interesting. Edge work, fantastic. So again, not straightaway speed good, but as far as just turning corners in the zone, is very good. There was a shift where he literally just kind of skated like a circle around the whole Kingston zone, banked the puck off the boards to himself like twice in the span of a shift. It was pretty amazing. Again, that's just where I'm telling you, he is offensively gifted in the zone when Saginaw needs something to happen. I'm just saying, again, not hugely dramatic, doesn't have this top-notch speed, doesn't have this great Ovechkin shot. I mean, it's just he's an interesting case study, and of course, as Mike mentioned, led his team to that comeback because they started double shifting him in that third period. He moved from the wing to center, which was interesting, and he basically led his team to the league. Everything from like a shot from the circle to being parked in front of the net, using his body to kind of get to the puck and just tucking it past the goalie. Every kind of goal like that we saw. And he took the team on his back. Like they didn't look like when they were down 4-1, like they did not look that intimidated. There was like 17 minutes left, and like ever since then, double shift. He made things happen every single shift, and I just loved seeing that part of his game. I was disappointed going into the third, and then the third he kind of just blossomed, and went to show me, wow, like this guy can put a team on his back when it really matters.
So I think a big part of why he sort of started to shine in the third was for the most of the game, he was paired on a line with Cole Koski and Ryan Suzuki. And I think Ryan Suzuki was a recent addition through a trade that Saginaw they brought in. And I think on that line, Perfetti was cherry-picking a little bit because he was trusting Ryan Suzuki and Cole Koski to dig pucks out of the corner and get them up to him. I think when the coach split up Ryan Suzuki from that line and started to get Perfetti and Suzuki running on different lines, that's when Saginaw started to really turn the game. Because if Perfetti wasn't on the ice, Suzuki was, and they were starting to get sort of controlled possession in the Kingston zone for long periods of time. And then, Perfetti came out in the third period looking like a completely different player from the first two. And I think Shane Wright came out in the third period and just after his goal sort of disappeared.
Absolutely. The momentum clearly shifted. And at that point, this young Kingston team started to show themselves. And guys like Shane could only do so much. But even though, I mean, I think I came away from that game seeing, I mean, between that pass he made, between the shot, I told Kyle from the first time Kyle saw him, I'm like, watch his shot. It's an underratedly good shot. It's a quick release, and it's underratedly good. And I saw that right on display going top corner on that goalie. So another great game for Shane Wright. He keeps putting up the numbers. I'm very excited seeing this. But of course, the Perfetti scouting, that's kind of the big point to take away here. I saw what I needed to see. Like he basically showed me what I need to see. Like the guy who scored the shootout goals in the Hlinka Gretzky, I see how he do that. He has the skill. He has the hands. He can pass the puck. I see him as more of a playmaker than a goal scorer, like long term. not a dramatically great skater, not like a Stutzel skater. Stutzel's like in another class as far as the skating goes. But yeah, I mean, again, can be a hot dog at times, but at certain points, he has the hockey sense and the offensive playmaking as good as anybody.
Can you deliver me an NHL comparable? Do you have that?
I got to think about that. I don't want to go on the... Maybe Mike can get into it, and then I can throw somebody out there, but Mike seems to have somebody ready right now.
One more thing. You go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, he's a bit of an undersized forward. I think he's got playmaking skill, but doesn't quite have the compete level. Brings to mind, like, at least a little bit... I don't know. I think the vision and the way he can move the puck reminds me a little bit of like a Mitch Marner light. So not quite that high end skill. But he's got the hockey IQ and the goal I was most impressed by, and the reason why I say almost like a Mitch Marner light is because the goal that impressed me was the third. I think it was the tying goal for Saginaw or the third goal for Saginaw, where it was some offensive zone time, puck on net, and he was right by the side of the goal, popped up, got the rebound, and just tucked it home. And it was just being in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, and sort of, even though being a little small, willing to go
to the dirty area,
willing to go to the net, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Mitch Marner's not the best comparable, but just sort of the vision and the hockey sense.
Yeah, like I was about to say, like just on the top of my head, like a similar player would be Boudreau. Yeah. But I haven't seen that element of Goudreau's game, like the dirty area game. So maybe there is an extra element there to Perfetti. But just holistically speaking, if I just had to top of my head, like maybe Boudreau.
He was another guy I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Because
Marner to me is another level past Boudreau, but they're similar. So I see where you're going there.
We all saw the Byfield game. You guys saw the Perfetti game. Which one impressed you more between the two of them?
Byfield because of the ceiling. I mean, you have that raw disposition. You have that physical. You've been gifted with that physical dimension. Your skating is a step above Perfetti's, if you ask me. When he's engaged, again, there's this engagement level with Byfield where I just can't get a read as to when he's on and off. But when he's on and I'm seeing him at the top of his perceived ceiling, I get more excited about Byfield. I think he's got more of a shot than Perfetti. He can distribute the puck as well as Perfetti, I'd say. We saw that on display at our game when he made that pass from the point to the guy in front of the net. I don't know. To me, I'd rather have Byfield.
I agree with Nick. I think Byfield's the better player. But I think as far as the performances that we saw, I preferred Perfetti's game to the one we saw from Byfield. I think they both have similar engagement issues, and I think it comes from perhaps having skill and for Perfetti hockey IQ, for Byfield size, because we've talked on this podcast today, and you guys have talked before about how when the game speeds up, sometimes Byfield looks like he can't keep up. So I don't know. I think they both have areas to improve. But I liked the way Perfetti played against Kingston more than how Byfield played, for sure.
One thing I want to go back on real quick, you guys mentioned a little bit of Shane Wright. I got to mention this. So far, statistically, just pure stats-wise, I haven't watched all the games by any means, but Shane Wright is having the best exceptional status season that we've ever seen. Again, draft -2. He's going to get 40 goals this year. He's at 33 with something like 20 games left. That's ridiculous. And it's not like he's surrounded. The thing is, he's already at a better point per game clip than McDavid was in a similar season. McDavid had Connor Brown on that team. And I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Kingston has a player of that caliber that Shane Wright can play with. But John Tavares had a great host of players to play with in his exceptional status team. So I think I see Wright, especially statistically, as the best player on this team, the offensive leader, and at a guy who just turned 16 a month ago. For Christ's sakes, this is special what we're seeing. And from what I can see, he's blossoming. Nick went to one of his early games, and we were just like, you know what, 15, he's learning the year. He looked a little bit, off speed, but he is, correct me if I'm wrong, has come a long way.
As far as the growth.
A long way.
It's amazing seeing him. I was at the home opener and seeing him that game, seeing his first shift to the game that Mike and I were just alluding to. The growth has been clearly there. Like mature. He went from being kind of clearly a rookie on the team to now having the heavy minutes, communicating with all the players, being like this captain of this team. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the A.
Oh yeah, he does.
He got the A.
Well, I got to get my jersey updated.
Yeah.
Oh my God. One more thing. You better hold on to that jersey and not let it touch. Don't let it touch the outside world. Like, keep it in a fucking Ziploc bag. That thing is going to be worth a mountain of money. Holy shit.
Well, and like he's got the A now. He's going to get the C on this team. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. He's an unbelievable player, and his weakness has been skating. That's sort of been what people have been saying for a while. He's got a few years to work on skating before he hits the NHL. He's already a leader on this Kingston team. He doesn't exactly have a huge host of skilled players to play with. I think there's been a lot of excitement around Pinchuk on the Frontenacs. He's been an import
Chemistry
player.
with them,
yeah. So there's an excitement around there. And then Wisdom has been a really good player for him to play with.
He's going in the second round in the draft this year.
Wisdom?
Yep.
He plays really hard.
Yep.
Really hard. Great role model as far as on the ice play.
Yeah.
But this Shane Wright kid is going to be unbelievable if anything that he's shown so far continues to be present.
And here's what excites me. Kyle and I were talking earlier in the season. They had a terrible start to the year. And I was like, how's this going to affect his demeanor and his character? We heard the horror stories of McDavid and his dad having to visit him in Erie because he'd get so emotional after their terrible losses. And the Kingston Frontenacs have been playing decent hockey ever since that Sudbury game. And the Niagara Ice Dogs, since they traded Thomas and they traded Tomasino, they've fallen. And all of a sudden, the Kingston Frontenacs are within 1 point of a playoff spot. And the OHL, they have the West and the East. In the top, there's 10 teams in each thing. The top 8 of 10, it's fairly liberal who gets in, make it to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Kingston is 1 point behind Niagara. They might pass them, and Ottawa's number 1. So we might have a Rossi Wright first-round series around the end of March.
You guys got to go.
Oh, for sure.
To all the games.
Wow. And so I'm so excited this kid might get to experience a playoffs in his first year, and how exciting that would be for this franchise after finishing last year.
This kid is so good that I might pawn off everything I own to buy Kingston season tickets next year just to see this guy play. He has been unbelievable.
Wow. That's speaking volumes. It's one thing to buy a jersey and to get his autograph. It's another to buy season tickets.
You got to find a way to get the autograph. Next time they do a jersey signing, let everyone know, hell, I'll pay for it, and can you please get mine signed? Someone, please. I need this. Like, they'll do that again, right? The mall, the strip mall?
So, yeah.
Season tickets are like $500-$600.
That's a lot of money.
Oh!
For Kingston Runner.
I know. You'd have to be like a super fan.
But like he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's so lovable. It's so easy to love. He's a perfect kid. Kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else you got?
And no, like I said, just to give a tease, like I said, Ottawa, they will be in town mid-March. So Mike and I will be sure to communicate this time and get in there together. And we'll have our review. Regardless of where I'm at for that episode, we'll get Mike to chime in on that experience. So we'll have your scouting report of Rossi. And then I think all in all, heading into April for the lottery, we'll have gotten to see Byfield live, Rossi live, Perfetti live. I mean, that's a pretty I mean, we just saw Drysdale at the All-Star game. I mean, to say I've seen half of those guys live, and you too, having been at the prospect at the camp for the World Juniors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an incredible privilege, and
Rink Moose pumping out quality.
Yeah, and we'll be able to actually say something about these guys as opposed to just watching shitty video on OHL.com. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love your 2-minute little highlight clips, but it's one thing to see that, and another to see you guys live. So, I mean, lots to be excited about.
The last thing I want to do, if you don't have anything else.
Nope.
I got Tankathon up on my computer screen here. Let me run the sim lottery once, and just create this religion. Like whatever we see here is what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to have you guys guess. Okay, I'm going to run the sim.
Let me pull up the standings here.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. Nick, you're good?
Yep. So just make a prediction here. Who's going to get it?
Yep. All I need is top 3 from you fellas.
Oh, wow. That's too much to predict here. I thought you just wanted one.
Just give me a lottery team if you can. No, you're just going to say Detroit. Don't do that.
No, I'm wearing a Kings jersey right now, so I'm going to go LA Kings.
To win?
Detroit 3, Ottawa from San Jose 2,
Okay.
and I'm going with Chicago 1.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Nick, what do you got?
I'll give you LA will come second. They'll almost get him, but they won't, so they'll go second. Third, I'll go Ottawa from San Jose.
Okay.
Or no, I'll go Ottawa. Standard Ottawa. Or no. Okay, third. Okay, no. Third standard Ottawa. 2 LA Kings. And number 1 overall pick, Alexis Lafreniere to the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Gary Bettman is in the building. That weird bald guy is coming down with the briefcase.
No, the lawyer. They get like an accountant. They get an accountant to carry the briefcase. He's the one who knows.
The lottery results are in. I think, wow. One of you guys is definitely pretty darn close. Number 3. What'd you guys have for number 3?
Detroit.
I had Ottawa from San Jose.
Detroit with a 3rd overall pick.
Okay.
Ottawa from San Jose 2.
Number 2. What'd you have?
I had LA.
LA with the number 2 overall pick. Number 1, picking 1st overall in the hilarious turn of events. Ottawa from San Jose.
Oh,
Nice.
Wow.
From San Jose. It had to be from San Jose.
That's awesome. Man, this thing is so crazy.
I know.
Like I was telling Kyle, I did 20 of these like a month or 2 ago, and Detroit only got it twice of 20.
Yeah.
It took me 20 tries for Detroit to finally get the 1st overall.
So the lottery is so unpredictable now. I had a friend who's a Vancouver fan over the past few years, just killing himself hitting that refresh button. But this is the type of draft year where if you're in the top 5, you're walking away with a player you're happy with. Obviously Lafreniere is number 1 by I think a mile right now, but in the top 5, you're looking at after Lafreniere, Byfield, Stützle, I think Rossi, and Drysdale. And I think any of those 4 players you'd be happy with.
Right now. Well, the bigger question will be what their legacy holds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who is the bust? Is there a bust? Right? Like,
his name's Quentin Byfield.
I was about to say that.
But this guy of all guys has a very shaky underpinning. That's all I'm gonna say. He's held up by toothpicks. His whole like
like are one of those is one of those Swedes going to be a bust? Like they're top 10, right?
I could see it. Yeah,
it's fascinating. Like I'm not overly impressed by Perfetti. I probably wouldn't say he's going to be a bust, but I wouldn't say he's this godsend, you know. So yeah.
What I'll say about Byfield is even if he's a bust, I think he's a bust in the sense that he ends up being like a solid 3rd liner. He still ends up being a good NHL player, but the expectations that are going to surround him being taken top 2 or top 3 if he falls out of the top 2 spot are, I just don't think I think there's a potential he doesn't live up to those, and if he doesn't live up to those, that he's seen as the bust of this draft.
He should go. He'd like to go to a small market team. I don't. I think he'd crumble in a big market. Don't you, Kyle?
You know why
he
we
needs
say
not
that?
to get a lot of interview questions.
Yeah.
He needs to just stay
Yeah.
in his own shell and
Stay
play.
out of
go
the
to
camera.
LA. Go to LA.
Yeah, because this guy is mentally fractured.
Unhinged.
Yeah, he's a gelatin floor that you're walking on, and you're like, oh fuck, what's he gonna say now?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't like him.
Yeah, he does.
I want to like him a lot.
He belongs in Southern
I
California.
shared the ice with him in Newmarket, Ontario, and I don't like him. Not because of that night.
because he
Just
wore
every
a,
time I
'cause
see
he
him,
wore a
it's like,
ski
come on.
jacket. Because he wore a ski jacket.
Oh, he was
unzipped.
fucking bundled up, man. His mom got him way too much
Yeah.
clothing that night.
Yeah, way too many layers. Yeah.
Anyways, we're over the 2 hour 20.
Well over.
minute mark,
This
so-
might be the record.
This is the record. This is the
record?
Rink Moose's longest episode.
Okay, but make sure that's in the title.
So I hope you guys are still with us at
Yeah.
this point.
But yeah, no, despite the length, expert coverage nonetheless.
Oh,
Honored to have our special guest Mike back on.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, always love coming on with you boys
Yeah.
and talking hockey. And always love the hot takes on Quinton Byfield as well.
Yeah, like I said, we'll definitely have you back for our whenever we see this Ottawa game to get into to Rossi there. But until next time, the deadline is approaching. We're about 10 days away or so. So lots to dissect after that. What will Montreal do? What will the Leafs do? All the other teams he spoke of. So lots to look forward to. And we hope you enjoyed the show for today. And until next time, finally, after 2.5 hours, Rink Moose signing off.